All right, I think we are live. So welcome everyone to another Maran Motoring live stream here on the Maran Motoring YouTube channel. So hope you're all having a great weekend here. Thanks so much for stopping by. So like all the other usual live streams here, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give party answering. Then who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames, they always get that party answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description. Also, the other little thing I will say is that YouTube keeps pestering me to do more or to enable ads in these things. And I've always said no to it because I don't want to like interrupt the talking and the flow of the stream. But they now have said that whenever I let them do the ads automatically, they will minimize ads for members. And since it's, that's, one of the other perks I've been trying to do with members as well as, giving them party answering, better experience, all that kind of stuff. I'm hoping that it works out. I'm just going to experiment with it tonight and see if it, is annoying or something. But I think now the ads for lives, they just go alongside the video, and I think that they're muted. If it's terrible, let me know in the comments, and I'll never do it again. But just going to try it out tonight, and we'll see what happens. But I see also we have here Steven, Lanswath, Anthony, Kevin, Danny, B. Mitchell, and let me see. Who else here? Chad and Raphael, Jazz, Stratus, Mr. 705, Luke, Will from San Diego. Thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. And hope you're all having a great weekend. So Steven has the first comment here. He says, well, Matt, unfortunately, the Kia EV3 has been delayed until late next year. So that means my dad will be shopping around for other options. He did test drive an EV6 2 months ago, but he wasn't in love with it as he thought he would. But it wouldn't fit well on his side of the garage. His side is shorter. It's over 184 inches or so for the length there. Well, if your dad has any other options and he'd like an extra opinion on it, I'm more than happy to chime in with my thoughts, but hope he finds the right car for him. And the good news is that there's a lot of good options. I will actually be reviewing the new Nissan Leaf here in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. That's kind of same size as EV3, I think, pretty similar. So that could be a really nice option. I'm very optimistic that that'll be a really good experience. We'll see, but I've heard good things about the new Leaf, and so that might be, it's one of the freshest and most exciting options. That it's really nice and affordable and small, like the EV3 as well. And let me see. So Lancelot says good evening to everyone as well. Anthony says, hey everyone, no crazy spots this weekend. Hope you had a nice weekend, Matt. Thank you. Hope you had a great one too. And Kevin, thanks for stopping by. Danny says, hello, I drove yesterday and today. Me and my brother stumbled into a weird conversion today about the over 100 car pileup in Texas and what caused it. Rare, weird spot, 2008 Nissan Altima Hybrid. Wow, that's a cool spot. Two things. So in regards to your comment there, was this a new pileup that just happened, or is this, because I remember a while back when there was that bad ice storm in Texas, I think maybe that's what you're talking about, but if there was something new I missed, then that's crazy. As far as your weird spot, the Altima Hybrid, that's interesting because so you'll be seeing probably early next week, hopefully, my next junkyard walk. And I saw so many weird hybrids that I completely forgot existed. Slight spoiler alert, but I saw like a Cobalt Eco with the manual. I saw a Buick LaCrosse hybrid. And I actually thought of you, Danny, because you kind of know all these quirky hybrids and stuff. I didn't even know they made a LaCrosse hybrid. I had no clue. I don't know how I missed that, but that was one of the oddball GM hybrids that completely went over my head apparently. But yeah, there'll be some good spots. I found some really cool stuff in this junkyard, some really quirky mods, I'm so pleased with how these junkyard videos are going, at least on my end. And it seems like they're getting pretty decent views too, so I'm really happy about that. So stay tuned for some quirky hybrids here this week in that junkyard walk, Danny. And B. Mitchell says good evening with a few wisps of snow this afternoon, first of the year up here. That's crazy. It was refreshing to see 3 1978 to 79 Lincoln Town cars and a 76 Olds Delta 88 four-door hardtop that showed up at a Lincoln Club lunch. That's cool. And I hope that, yeah, at this point, there's not a ton of people that are huge fans of that kind of stuff. So if they can all bind together, and then it's not a Lincoln, it's an Olds, it's kind of the same camaraderie, I'm sure, and hopefully everyone enjoyed everyone's company. And he also says Montana Department of Transportation hadn't started treating the highways yet, so no 1970s sedans were harmed today. Well, that's good to hear. And yeah, I think tomorrow is supposed to be cold enough here to snow. I don't know if we're actually going to get snow or not. But it's because the forecast keeps going back and forth on whether or not it will actually snow. So we'll have to see. But I'm kind of excited for it. I always love snow. It's the Subaru rallyer in me that loves any kind of bad weather like that. And Danny says, forgot about my Ford Motor Company spot, a baby blue 2010 Mercury Milan hybrid. Nice. My spot, actually just this evening, I saw I think it's a Datsun maybe, or a Nissan 280Z. And it was really cool. Looks super original and red. And just was a really cool spot. So I haven't seen one of those in a good long while. So that was really fun. And Lancelot says he didn't really leave the house, so I have no spots for the second part of the week. Well, hey, that's all good. You just stay nice and cozy. And I'm sure it's probably getting cold up where you are too, Lancelot. So I don't blame you at all. And Danny says the exact color for the Milan was light ice blue metallic. Nice. And he's given the specs here for the Ultima Hybrid. It had the QR motor, interesting. And then combined with a 40 horsepower electric motor. So total output was 198 horsepower and 199 pound-feet of torque. Made it through an ECVT. Nice. Yeah. It's another car I completely, I guess, forgot that it existed or never paid attention because I wasn't really following hybrids too much back then. For me, it was all turbo Subarus and that was about it. And Chad says, OMG, when you hit the like button, it turns into a tire doing a burnout. And Danny says he just realized that too. Is this an actual thing? I've never seen that. I don't think there's any way to customize the like button, but if that is in fact a thing, then that's cool. If you're just encouraging people to like and find out, hopefully they won't be too disappointed. But I always appreciate the likes and anything that can help the videos. So thank you, Chad. Chad also says, not baiting, but there's an older guy with your favorite hatchback 3-cylinder that lives near us. Every time I see him driving it makes my heart happy. Well, I'm glad that you're getting the joy as well from those. And I don't know how recent it was, but I finally just noticed that someone, not really a neighbor, they're like 10 minutes away from me, but I drive past this road pretty frequently, and there's someone with a white GR Corolla getting the drink started early tonight. And they have one though. And so now, like every time I drive past there pretty consistently, I see a GR Corolla, and that makes me happy too to see one all the time. Because I don't see them super often. I've seen a few in the past couple of months, including, I forgot to mention this. This was, when was this? A couple of weeks ago. Which trip was I on? It was one of the trips I was on. Was it one of the Arizona ones? I can't remember. But anyway, sometime in the past 2 months or so, I was being shuttled to the hotel from the airport. And I looked over and I was like, oh, there's a wrecked car in the median. Or it was like, in the grass median, dividing part of the highway there. And I was like, oh man, that's rough. And I'm like, oh, it looks kind of like a Corolla or something. And then I'm driving and it's a GR Corolla with the entire front end ripped off, just abandoned in the middle of the median of the highway there. And I didn't see any like other crash damage. So it seemed like it had been cleaned up and been sitting there for a little bit. I'm like, who is just letting this GR Corolla sit in a median? Like, I'm about to make this my mission to like go rescue this car and claim it as my own if it's going unclaimed. But it was just, wow, just sitting there. Like there was not a soul sitting around it or doing anything. There wasn't a cop there, nothing. Like it was like, I was trying to get to the bottom of that, but I unfortunately ended up getting too busy with other things. And I don't believe it was there whenever I came back the other way on the way to the airport in a day or two after that. So I'm guessing someone grabbed it. But for a bit there, I was like, man, this would be a great project. I can bring a GR Corolla back to life. Anyway, Lancelot, thank you so much for gifting 10 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity. Thank you so much for that. And happy to see you got Steven and yeah, a bunch of people able to get these. And so yeah, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. I'm sure they all do as well. And let me see here. So Mr. 705 says, "Hey Matt, did you see the clip from Tesla's newest earnings call where Elon said you will be allowed to text soon while driving?" I heard about that, and it is terrifying. um, and then they also apparently re-enabled the Mad Max mode, which is like the mode where your Tesla drives like a crazy person. Um, I mean, yeah, I guess these days now we can't hope for any kind of regulation, because these were things that were kind of clamped down on pretty aggressively, in the prior administration, but now it's going to be a free for all, I'm sure. So, like I've said for many years now, give Teslas a wide berth. Owners are overconfident with what they think their cars can do. These things are trying to do full self-driving with no radar, no LiDAR, and not doing it very well in most cases. Actually, we just had locally here a Tesla that ran into a school bus like a week or two ago. Thankfully, I don't think anyone was hurt, but yeah, I don't like it, especially when it's a Cybertruck, when you got a ton of weight involved as well. That's when it's really terrifying. So stay away from Cybertrucks as best you can, especially in my opinion. But yeah, everything about that whole earnings call, I was hearing some of the other snippets, the whole $1 trillion pay package is insane. And, them claiming that, what is it? These robots are going to be, I can't remember what it was, some insane, pipe dream like Tesla's famous for, that'll, probably take 5 to 10 times as long to actually materialize if it ever even does. But, yeah, it's I can't believe people are buying the BS anymore. Like, so many years of BS and disappointments, and then it's still just going to hype up the stock, because now the Tesla stock is so intertwined with everyone's retirement accounts, and it's in the S&P 500 and all this stuff. So it's just like everyone now has to keep the Tesla stock propped up and keep believing the BS, because if that stock finally gets to a correct valuation that's realistic, which means like decimating it, it's not going to be pretty for the entire stock market. So we're all unfortunately on this BS ride with Elon now, and it's oh man, not a good sound solid foundation for everyone's retirement accounts and stuff. But we're hell bent on repeating the mistakes of 2008, it seems. So buckle up and hope for the best. But anyway, moving on here so I don't go too off the deep end. Luke says, the siding job at my house just got wild. Basically, the structure to my front porch is bad, and I'm converting it into a half laundry room, half extension of the living room. That's crazy. Well, sorry to hear about the struggles, and I hope everything works out with that. That's nuts. That's sometimes the tricky thing with doing things in your house, is you uncover worse things, or then things that are out of code. Then you have to, you can't do stuff because you're, held back by regulations and stuff. And yeah, it gets real expensive and real headachy real quick. So best of luck figuring that out, Luke, and sorry to hear about the troubles. And Danny says, weird Ford fact for the night. Did you know Ford helped make the first generation Nissan Quest? And that's pretty much how we end up with the Mercury Villager. Pretty weird. Yeah, that was yeah, a lot of, I guess it's a generational thing. I feel like anyone who's older probably knew that if you're in the car world, but certainly people of the younger generation, yeah, that's probably something that's pretty wild to think about. But yeah, Ford had their hand in a whole lot of stuff back then with so many partnerships. That was the times when they were, I think around the time they were owning Jag, owning Aston Martin, and doing all these different things, including the partnership there with Nissan for the Quest. What was the other? I feel like there's another minivan thing I'm thinking. I mean, they did the partnership with Mazda for the Ranger. I mean, it was like all over the place. I mean, this was really when, again, all these American companies were just being completely annihilated by the Japanese, and so they're just clinging on to any Japanese thing they could. And so, yeah, but yeah, I did know that the quest and the villager were kind of alongside each other. I don't think I think the only unique quest was actually the final generation of the quest. I think is the only one that was a fully Nissan effort, and I could even be wrong about that. I don't know, but I thought that was the only one that was unique. Um, and Lancelot says he's on YouTube Premium, so he doubts he'll see the ads. Yeah, if you're on Premium, you definitely won't see ads at all. It's just for anyone who, yeah, doesn't have Premium. Where if you're not a member, you might see a few. Let me know again how it goes for sure. I don't want to make it a crappy experience for anyone. And Sean, thank you so much for the first super chat here of the night. I really appreciate it. He says, speaking of EVs, home charging isn't possible for me. Do you think a Chevy Bolt would be a good buy if I can only use public charging? No, unless you have a very predictable schedule and you never have any wild card variables that throw that schedule off. Like if you know that no matter what happens every Sunday night, you're going to be at a Walmart with a fast charger that is pretty deserted. Like if there is a very controlled environment you can count on, yes, it can work. And I've talked to some people, even I think one or two people here in the live stream in the past who said they do that and it works for them, especially if you're not a heavy driver and maybe, not getting that fast charge for the week isn't a make or break kind of thing. But the other problem with fast charging, publicly is it's very expensive at this point. I mean, depending on where you live, it's different everywhere. But for most people, it's actually more expensive to fast charge than to fill up with an equivalent, relatively fuel efficient gas powered vehicle. So and that's not going to get any better with, again, the way AI and crypto is sucking down electricity. That's only going to get worse. So no, I would say that I really only recommend EVs if you can charge at home or at work, or best case scenario both. But that's really the only way I can recommend it. If you want an electrified experience, and there's no way to charge, then I would just say hybrid, because even a plug-in hybrid is going to be a waste for you, because if you can't plug it in every night, you'll be dragging a battery around that you're hardly ever using. So I just recommend a regular hybrid at this point. And again, for some people it does work, but I think you're going to unless if you don't care about the money and you're, again, all those other things I mentioned, those variables that you're comfortable with, and you don't mind paying extra, if it's just you want an electric vehicle for whatever reason. Again, there's some people that do just have it for that alone. And if, it's just, you like the experience, you like, what it's doing, or you like, the idea of it, or whatever the case is, like, then go for it. But no, anyone who I've talked to, whether it's in my own personal, relationships, or anyone, on here, I've always recommended only charge at home or at work, because otherwise you're losing your butt on money with, charge cost. It's very nice, just that's the whole perk of an EV, is to have a full tank every day you leave, never have to go to a gas station, and you kind of don't get any of those perks if you're public charging all the time. So I think hybrid would be the best thing for you, Sean, in my opinion, but do what feels best for you. And thank you again so much for the super chat. And Jordan, thanks so much for rejoining the member club here. I really appreciate it. And I'm actually finally, I don't know, it's been how long? It's been over a year. I'm going to do a member exclusive video. I have it on my schedule. I'm going to do it probably on Friday. I'm going to do another tour of the shelf back here. I know a lot of you, seen lots from all the weekly updates in the past and now from the lives. And so show you a close-up look, and I'm going to kind of give you all the stories as to how I got all the stuff back there, because a lot of the stuff is like, swag from press trips and drives and things like that. So, and I know some of you asked about like some of the books and things like that. So I'm going to do all of that, and that'll be on Friday. It'll probably be long, because I'm sure I'll get tangent-y with it, but hopefully you'll enjoy that. So I'm going to do that here as a member video. So one more perk to becoming a member and joining, or hopefully you get lucky there with the gifts that the Landswath and others do. But anyway, thank you so much, Jordan, for rejoining. I really appreciate it. And let me see here. So where were we? So Theodore says he just saw Buick Grand National. Very nice. And Chad says we just watched Motor Week's 45th anniversary. It was really cool to see some of the flashbacks. I love JD's voice. Wondering if you or others here have a favorite part of Motor Week. That's awesome. I saw they posted that. I want to watch a few of the little clips that they posted up on YouTube. But I haven't watched it yet. But my favorite thing of Motor Week, I don't know. I think for me it's the retro stuff is my favorite, parts, just seeing all the old stuff that, was before anyone else was doing video. They were the first video and they were really the only video. As far as reviews, everything else was commercials and TV shows. I mean, I guess you could argue, there was the early Top Gear in the late 90s, I believe, before they had the reinvented version that was, the popular one. Yeah, they did do the one, I think, with Clarkson and just one other random person. There was also, Tiffany Dell, I think, actually did a few early episodes. So there was some of that, but then that was like late 90s still, which was still over 10 years after Motor Week started. So they were really, the pioneers. And I did have the honor of meeting John Davis back at an auto show in Detroit. I think this was 2018. 2017, one or the other. Only time I've met him, but I mean, the man's a legend, so it was an honor. But I mean, they're really the trailblazers for all of us. I strangely enough, I didn't watch it as a kid. I watched a lot of PBS as a kid. We didn't have cable for much of my early years growing up, and so PBS was most of my childhood TV watching. But I don't know why. I never caught Motor Week or just didn't remember it. My dad, wasn't really into cars, so he wouldn't have put it on. But I'm bummed I never watched it as a kid, because I feel like that would have been really fun and would have only accelerated my love of cars that I ended up picking up eventually, just thanks to video games and stuff. But let me see here. Danny says Ice Storm Pileup. So I'm guessing that was an old ice storm, right? Not a new one. But anyway, Mr. 705 says the only spot I saw today was snow. Well, sorry if that kind of brings some of the fun car stuff to an end for some of you, depending on where you live. But I'm always excited about snow, especially around Christmas time. Whenever it's like, January, February, it's a little more blah. But anytime it's, you're hearing all the Christmas songs, although I haven't started Christmas stuff yet. I don't know. Everyone's different with that. But, I'm always excited for snow and at least, especially December. December snow, I'm like 100% like, give me all the snow in December you want to send. But but then after that, I'm kind of like, all right, I'm over this a little bit. But let me see. Chad says there's also an older guy with a Hellcat that parks in the handicap parking at the Publix right by our house, retiring right. Nice, that's funny. That is a fun way to cruise to the supermarket in your retired years. And Lancelot says it was 50 degrees here today with a breeze. For the temp, it was rather chilly. Yeah, I noticed that too. I was standing outside. We were doing some rolling shots today here. And it's actually kind of cold, even though, it was about the same temperature here, but that wind was, really cold. And now it's like tonight going to dive down to like into the low 30s, I think. So it's going to turn into winter here all of a sudden. And Chad says it actually does turn into a burnout. I don't know if you're screwing with me, Chad, or if you're actually serious, but maybe YouTube made an announcement that I missed or something, but I've never seen that before. But that's very cool if that actually is a thing. I'll have to try that on someone else's live stream. If any other car people do live streams here in the next week or so, I'll have to try and remember that. And YH, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, what do you think of the M2 CS? Want to get one in 2027, but we'll probably get the regular M2 as the CS is too expensive. Blue Blur hibernates when there's snow. Nice. I honestly haven't followed it too much. So I couldn't even tell you a lot of the stuff. I saw a bunch of the reviews went up, in the past week or two or whatever. BMW doesn't really, they very rarely send me press cars and they don't invite me on anything. So I'm kind of out of the loop on BMW, sadly. I'm like the last person on earth that hasn't driven the current generation M3. And it's, it is what it is, but, I'm at the mercy most of the time of just seeing what comes in at the dealerships that I work with. And unfortunately, none of the dealerships I work with have a new BMW franchise, so it's always waiting for stuff to come in used. But I mean, so it's what, a little bit more power. It's got the all-wheel drive, automatic only, right? I mean, it sounds like a cool combo. It's just, what are they, like 100 grand now or something? Like, it's so expensive. And the thing that I love about the M2s is, that they are simpler. I like the manual one, and I like, just kind of the more basic M2s. The more scrappy ones are the most fun ones. And I mean, I like the new one whenever I reviewed it, just the regular M2. But I have to say, I think I like the last generation better. I think the further back you go with 2 Series, even whenever it went into 1 Series, all of those are fantastic cars. I love that old. I don't know the chassis code, but the first generation of the 1 Series we got here in the States, that was when I was working at the BMW dealer. I remember the first model year actually came in, and I remember around the start button, it said year 1 of the 1. And I remember we got those first 1 Series in, and even the base 128 was so fun, so fantastic. And get them with a manual and everything. So that's the kind of like 2 Series and 1 Series that I really like, is simple, scrappy, manual rear wheel drive. Like, that's the way to go. And I worry that, again, I've not watched any reviews on them or anything, so I, take what I say with a grain of salt. But to me, it's just doing what BMW always does, which is like, oh, let's add a bunch of crap on it. Let's like overcomplicate things and make it worse. Like, in their mind, it's objectively like, yes, it laps faster, it does it faster, all the numbers improve. And this is oftentimes a very German OEM thing. There's others that do this too, but it's very much like, okay, well, the numbers are better, so therefore this is better, and it's progress, and they all are happy with the job that they did, and that's the end of it. But I keep hearing this about a lot of these modern BMWs. Same thing even with the M5 Touring. It's like, hooray, we're getting a wagon M5 finally in the States, and that's great, and I'm excited for it. I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, but it's like, well, let's add in the plug-in hybrid. And I know that was also, done because of emission stuff. And, because a lot of these European cities, this thing is going to be driving into in the future will be cities that don't allow gas engines, and you will need, a decent hybrid, plug-in hybrid range to get through city centers before you can turn on the gas engine, once you're out of those confines and go nuts. So I understand, and I'm not opposed to the rationale behind it, but they just, even before this generation, I mean, they kept adding crap and adding crap and adding crap. And, my favorite M5s are the old ones. I reviewed back in 2019, I think it was, I did the E39, I did the E60. I love those ones. That's peak M5 for me. Honestly, like, after E60, it dropped off. I mean, they're all good in their own ways, and I reviewed the other ones, and they're impressive too. But I think that that's when they started to lose a little bit of the edge and a little bit of the specialness. And I don't know. I think BMW just kind of lost their way still, and I think the 2 Series was the last mostly pure thing that they did. And now they're overcomplicating that as well. And again, chasing the numbers. And it's like, that car is not about numbers. It's never been about numbers. Don't make it about numbers. And now it's about numbers. And, they're going to do their thing, and, they're not the only ones, but yeah, I just like, if I want an all-wheel drive, super fast coupe, I'm just going to go buy a used GTR. To me, that's way cooler. Probably cheaper at this point as well. Like, to me, obviously it's not as luxurious as a new BMW, but are they even that luxurious now? It's just a gigantic bunch of screens and basically nothing else. I don't know. I'd rather, if that's what your criteria is all-wheel drive and a bunch of power, give me an R35 GTR and call it a day. Like, that is hands down. Or I'd go Audi RS5 coupe, before they quit making the 2-door version of that. That's like a more luxurious GTR almost. I've loved those as well, but like, again, you can save so much money on the used market versus M2, especially M2 CS. So obviously there's BMW fans with blank checks to write that are just happy to throw money at it. But I can't say I'm a cheerleader for most of the modern, BMW stuff. Let me see here. Chad, thank you so much for being a member for 17 months now. He says, we have an alert for falling iguanas on Tuesday because of the cold. Definitely a Florida only problem. Thanks as always for doing these chats. That's hilarious. Well, I hope that the iguanas are okay and don't get injured too much there. But man, that's if you actually get some cold weather in Florida, I feel like people are going to lose their minds. So watch out for the crazy drivers there. That's for sure. And let me see. Where are we here? I'm going to try not to fall too far behind with my tangents here, pushing us back. But let me see here. So where were we? So Danny says the Cobalt Eco you saw was the Cobalt XFE, the most fuel efficient Cobalt without needing a hybrid system. 25 city, 37 highway, tall gear, 5-speed, low resistance tires, crank windows, and power options. Interesting. Yeah. See, the junkyard, though, they spray paint hybrid on the side of anything that has the electrical components in it, and that was marked as a hybrid. And I don't know if it got mismarked. I thought I saw the orange cables under the hood, but I could be wrong. I'll have to go back and see whenever I do the edit here tomorrow. But yeah, that's why I was confused because I'm like, they're saying this is hybrid. I don't think it's a hybrid, but it's confusing. And he also says the lacrosse hybrid was a mild hybrid. GM called the system E-Assist, 182 to 184 horsepower, used either the 2.4 or 2.5 EcoTech i4, made it to 6-speed auto, 25 city, 36 highway. Electric motor was the hated feature. Thanks for the info, Danny. Interesting. So a mild hybrid. So just an extended stop start then pretty much, right? That's weird because like I thought that one definitely had the orange cables, which I feel like would be overboard for a non-fully hybrid thing. But I guess that makes sense because really, yeah, it was just Tahoe. The other ones I remember were Tahoe and Suburban. And then what was the other hybrid thing? Because this was even, I guess, first generation Volt, but that's plug-in hybrid. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway. Thanks for the info there, Danny. And Luke says it's 310 extra square feet added and laundry upstairs from the basement. So it's sort of a good thing in disguise. Costing me an extra 10 grand, man. Well, yeah, hopefully it works out and makes it easier on you to not have to go down to the basement to do your laundry. Yeah, it's not fun. We still have to do that here, and it'd be nice to have an upstairs laundry for sure. So congrats on the upgrade, I guess. You're right. And Sean says I can get a good deal on one as far as the EVs because I drive for Uber Eats sometimes. Plus, they're going down in price around here. I mean, they're fantastic used buys for any of the EVs. And yeah, but if you're driving for Uber Eats, honestly, I think you're better off with a hybrid, honestly, because depending on how much mileage you do too, if you're going to properly and economically do, Uber Eats in an EV, I would say not only do you need to have a charger at home, but you need to have a higher range EV so you can make sure that, you have enough to last your full, evening or day or however long you're driving it for. And then you're going to want a high powered level 2 charger so that you are topped off from a very low state of charge overnight or, whenever you sleep. And, even a slower level 2, depending on how big the battery is, might not get you there. So that's why if you were going to do that, yeah, I would say make sure you got a high powered level 2. Make sure that the EV that you're getting is also something that can charge at a pretty fast level 2. Check the level 2 charge times and make sure that would, fully top you off, before you need to head back out so that you're not, because the last thing you want is to have to say no to an order, turn something down because you're sitting at a charger or you don't have enough juice to get you, to the place and back or whatever. So like, yeah, I think a hybrid would probably be the best way to go. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. And I hope the Uber Eats is going well. I actually was talking to someone not too long ago about it, and he said they actually make pretty good money. I think he says he he only does it kind of when he's bored. He doesn't do it like full time or anything, but he says he makes like $30 an hour doing it, which isn't bad these days. So, it sounds kind of tempting. Honestly, I love driving so much that if I had a little bit of free time, I kind of think it'd be fun to do in the Fiat. because I only have 140 miles of range, but if I could just, do 140 miles or less in an evening or something and, make a little bit of extra money, it could be kind of fun. And I may do that again. We'll see how the channel goes. Not ruling it out. But because that's, I think it'd be kind of fun. I'm sure hopefully you enjoy it and enjoy all the driving and all the adventures of it, I guess. But yeah, and Lantern Tail says phone keys are a little weird. I hopped in my Tesla Model Y today, and the car did not recognize the phone. It's weird because I was able to get in the car, but it wouldn't let me drive. It's only after I restarted the car that it worked. Interesting. Yeah, I don't love the phone as key thing. It can be a little problematic. We had it in our Mach-E, and thankfully it was always reliable for us, but I never depended on it. The only time so basically the way we use phone as key in the Mach-E, like a lot of times I'd be getting our daughter in the car before Beth had come downstairs or something. And so like she might have had the key on her, but I didn't, but I'd still be able to at least access the car and open it up because it recognized my phone. And, that was really nice because the Lyric doesn't have that. Cadillac has said, I think, that they are going to do phone as key, or the Apple Wallet phone as key thing, I think is actually going to happen, amazingly, even though it doesn't seem like they like working with Apple very much. But I think that's coming eventually, and I can't wait for that because it's going to be very nice. But I would never depend on it. I know a lot of people, Tesla people, even Mach-E people, Rivian people, a lot of people really heavily rely on that, and I do not trust it. I want to have an actual fob because you do not want to get stranded. It's the worst thing. So yeah, it's always good to have a backup, even if it's like the key card that Tesla has or something, at least giving you some other option. But I mean those are terrible too. Like I had the key card for the Rivian, and that was horrendous. Their app was also crap for me because you had to always like pull your phone out and physically hit unlock in the Rivian app for it to actually unlock, which it would then do instantly, but it didn't have the proximity feature. At least on mine, it didn't work that way. So yeah, I don't love phone as key as the only thing. And that's, these companies are trying to cheap out, Rivian again doing that. The Polestar, has this crappy little fob, and basically it's just hoping you're going to use your phone all the time. It just drives me crazy. And so that's one of the perks of the Cadillac is I was like, we have a physical regular Cadillac key that works every damn time. It's like very important to me because I've had so much frustration in the past year or so here with the Polestar, the Rivian. Those are some of the most stressful weeks of press cars. I mean, very nice press cars. I'm not trying to, be a snob here, but like, man, whenever you just like are sitting there fumbling like an idiot in a parking lot, standing next to your $100,000 car and looking like an idiot because you can't get into it, and you're sitting there pressing the button and pulling the handle and everything, and everyone else is looking at you like, why can't this person get in this car? Are they stealing the car? What's happening? It's like, it's the worst. So sorry you had to deal with that in your Tesla. Hopefully it was at least in your driveway or something and not out in public, and glad you got it sorted quickly. But I'm surprised because Tesla's usually like top notch with that. I think the software and all that stuff is like one of the things people love about Tesla. So it's surprising to hear that was a problem for you, but hopefully it was a one-off thing. And Total Sports says, do you think the production version of the new Acura RSX EV will be revealed at the LA Auto Show? I don't think so. They came out with the schedule for the LA for the press days for the show, and I think it's Hyundai, Kia, and one other company, but it's not Acura, I don't think. So like LA is kind of dead this year. Thankfully I'm not going, so I'm glad, because if I would have committed ahead of time and then showed up to a pretty weak show, it would have sucked. But thankfully I'm not going. And a lot of people are not going this year, so don't expect a ton of coverage. It seems like it's a lot less than usual. But yeah, I don't know when that's actually going to be revealed. My guess is going to be CES. Everyone's really into CES right now. I mean, maybe this year will be different, but in the past years, whenever EVs were all the rage, CES was where you wanted to show off all your fancy electric stuff. I'm guessing that's still going to be the thought and the thinking there. So my guess would be you'll see it in January. And that kind of lines up with, I think they said production, I think, starts second quarter of 2026, if I remember correctly. So that would line up too a little bit better. So it's not super far off from when they show it and when they actually start building them. Yeah, that'd be my guess. And sorry, I'm getting gunked up here a little bit. So Lantern Tail says the 2005 Quest was also a fully Nissan effort. Okay, a VQ paired with a 5-speed auto. Yeah, I think that's what I'm thinking of because it was '05, and I think that one went until the end, right? I think that was all the same generation, really. Um, and Danny says the Lacrosse hybrid had a twin, the Malibu Eco, same hybrid system as the Lacrosse. Yeah, that makes sense that all of them kind of would have shared that same thing. So that's cool. And Raphael says, one of my techs has an Ioniq 5. He doesn't have home charging and we don't have charging at work, but he's happy with it. Well, that's good. I'm happy. And, if you're going for one of the EGMP, Kia and Hyundai things, that's going to be one of your best experiences as far as regularly priced stuff goes, because it's just so fast with the DC charging. You can do 10% to 80% in, 20 minutes in an ideal situation. So if I had to do that kind of a thing, yeah, it would absolutely have to be one of the Ionics or something else that charges that fast, like a Lucid or Taycan e-tron GT, something like that. But that would have to be it, because yeah, you do not want to be sitting around waiting for your car every week. It gets old fast. I had to do it a couple of times, and even with press cars and stuff, it's a pain because some of the large press cars won't fit in the garage, and so I got to go to the fast charger, and it's not a good experience. Though. I mean, thankfully for me, they've always worked for the most part. Sometimes there's a little bit of a glitch, and I got to go to another one, but it's pretty rare. But it's just sitting around. It never charges as fast as it's claimed to charge, and it's always it's not ideal. It's fine on a road trip if you plan your stops and you're going inside eating for half an hour anyway. It doesn't matter if it's not hitting its peak charge rate or whatever. And on our road trips, we have had no problems, thankfully. Knock on wood. We've been really lucky with that, I guess. But I don't know if I'd want to do that every day, though, for sure. And also, I mean, Sean, the other thing I will say, you say you don't have charging at home. You don't have to have like a perfect setup either. I mean, you're not supposed to use an extension cord, because that can cause fire hazards. But even if you have like just an outlet in your driveway, or on your front porch that's maybe close to the driveway, or just if you have an exterior 110 power outlet, even I don't know, it depends on again how much you drive, but overnight, that should be good for at least 40 miles of range, even on a regular plug. If you just find some regular plug to plug it into on the outside of your house, that could at least get you some of the way there. And again, depending on how much you drive and how much the car sits at home, could work. I mean, that's like with us, we have level 1 in the garage, and that's it. I literally plug it into the wall outlet in the garage, and that's all we've ever done for the past 3.5 years now of EVs. And it's been completely fine. So, that's it's always an option. If you can, figure something like that out. Or even, I mean, it's depending on your outlet situation. It might not be insanely expensive, even if you don't have an exterior outlet, to put one out. But I mean, I feel like most everyone does, for Christmas lights and stuff, people have that, so they're, but if you want to have one that's closer to the driveway, maybe see if you can get a quote from an electrician, what it would cost, if it's just a few $100 or something to put an outside outlet in, then, again, you can do home charging and save some money there. It might pay for itself, and, kind of make that a reality if that's something you really want, and, let me see. Danny says the electric motor helped the gas engine with the off-the-line acceleration, and it did the most hated modern car feature, auto stop start. Nice. Well, hopefully it'd be a better auto stop start than the regular Malibus, because that was a horrible stop start system in the 2016 and newer Malibus. Let me see here. Jordan says, hey, Matt, Chad looked into the 1996 Lincoln Mark 8 for me. One owner, garage kept, clean interior and exterior, 79,000 miles. Asking price was 11,000. Thoughts? I'd have to look at comps to see what a comparable other one is going for. That's really the easiest way to do that. Look at all the other ones that are within the driving distance that you're willing to do. And then look at those, and if those are worse shape, then obviously, factor that into, the pricing and vice versa. So, but yeah, I have no idea what they go for these days, so I don't know if that's a good price or a bad price. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I'm not more help. But I mean, 79,000 miles, one owner. I mean, that sounds like a unicorn. Again, it just comes down to what is a unicorn of those worth. 11 doesn't sound crazy to me these days, but again, maybe nice ones are easily had for $5,000. I just have no clue. So sorry, I'm not more help there. And Luke says the contractor said if I were to convert my back deck into laundry, like my original future plan, it would have been 30 grand. So it's sort of a good value in a sense. Well, that's good. That's great to hear. And let me see. Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, does Ford still have copyright on the Taurus, Fusion, Tempo, Escort, Focus names, or patents? GM on Volt, Impala, Cascada, future return like Ranger and Bronco. Typically, it's within a car company's best interest to, control and protect their IP or intellectual property and trademarks, stuff like that, even if for no other reason than just to sell like T-shirts or things like that. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. Even if you don't think, like no one would want a Fusion T-shirt or something, stranger things have happened. I don't know if you guys have seen like Abercrombie and all these other places have like random like advertisements for like a 83 Bronco that's just like what would have been previously like a full page ad in a road and track or something is a T-shirt now. So there's all those kinds of things, and you never know what's going to be cool or desirable in the future. So typically they control those things. Now, if there's something that, sometimes they do let some stuff lapse, but oftentimes they do renew them. And this is why you often see the rumor mills get excited whenever, it's like, oh, well, Ford, resubmitted for a trademark for Taurus. And it's like, well, they're probably just, again, wanting to make sure they can keep that name for the future or whatever. And not, have someone else profit off of their equity that they have in those names. So I don't know all those names for a fact, but I'm pretty sure that all of them are protected. Yeah. Especially like Impala is a legendary name. Volt is, I guess not legendary, but very much associated with GM and also a highly desirable name for EVs these days. So I'm sure GM has that one on lock. Cascada, they might let that one go. I don't know, because I don't think they're ever gonna, market that. There's probably never gonna be any kind of appeal for that in any way. So but I'm pretty sure most of that stuff is typically protected just for one reason or another. And let me see here. Thank you so much again, Jordan, for the super chat. Where were we here? So Theodore's excited for the member video on Friday. I'm glad you're excited, Theodore. Mr. 705 says, have you been following the Toyota 3.5 recall? I have not. He says, it looks like they've recalled another 100,000. It's basically all of them at this point, from my understanding. Interesting. So what is, because I haven't been following it. So I have a lot of follow-up questions here. I apologize. Because my understanding was there was an issue with contamination on the production line that caused debris to get into some of those engines. I don't think that would have been a long-running issue. So unless it was just wildly out of control, quality control or something there, I'm not sure. Yeah, like what's going on with the other 100,000? I don't know. Like I've said before, I don't know about the 3.5, but I do know with the Tacoma and 4Runner motor, I literally, was standing 5 feet away from the chief engineer, powertrain engineer for that motor, who said it went through their regular Toyota durability testing, which is very high already, because everyone knows a Toyota should be reliable, and that's why they buy them. And Toyota knows that and understands that and knows the importance of that. But not only did it go through that test and pass, but it went through their commercial duty testing as well. I would assume the same was true for the Tundra. Maybe not, but I know that the Tacoma, at least for a fact, has had that vetting. Now, maybe again, something else got screwed up. To me, this stuff doesn't sound like Toyota engineering problems. This sounds like supplier issues or, again, production issue stuff, which still isn't great and still is, inexcusable. Like they should have their suppliers on lock and they should have their production facilities, airtight. But like, to me, I still have faith in Toyota engineering, despite the recalls and despite the issues that some have had. And it's just, yeah, I think it's got to just be a supplier weak link or something, and I'm sure there's heads rolling over that, because that's their whole reputation. And if they don't have reliability, I mean, Toyota's got other things going for them, but that is absolutely the whole appeal of a Toyota, and that's why the resale values are fantastic, and that's why they don't do very many discounts, and that's why there's wait lists for every new Toyota that comes out. And if you lose your mojo, I mean, it it's gonna be bad. I mean, this kind of if this is truly like a widespread thing and it's something they can't figure out, or they keep having more and more of this, and you keep losing fans and having people lose faith in the brand, this sounds like a Nissan CVT kind of scandal, where it's like, you had a bunch of people that pre Jatco CVT for Nissan, I don't know if people viewed it as completely equivalent with Honda and Toyota, but Nissan was very highly regarded in the 90s and the early 2000s. They were very reliable. I mean, I still think they are. It's just that CVT was really a weak point and really, was just not suited for all of the products it was put in. But, I think there's so many people who still that phantom of that CVT, which is ancient history. They haven't used that CVT in a new production car in probably like a decade at this point. But the amount of people that the second that I say in a review, this Nissan has a CVT, it's like, oh, forget this. It's garbage, blah, blah, blah. Like, no one understands it's a new CVT. It's a newly engineered thing. It's been in cars for the past decade, and they are actually reliable. And, people can't have that faith. But once you lose that faith and you have that burned into people's brains, like, Nissan CVT equals trouble. Some people hold on to that kind of crap for their whole life, and you can't recover. And so there's very little wiggle room, especially when you're talking about a company like Toyota. If they have issues and they lose followers, I mean, they could be viewed in the same light as Nissan in 10 years or something, if that is the widespread issue with everything, at least as far as the trucks go. Trucks are very hard to, I mean, that is a customer that's an uphill battle, especially when you're talking about Tundra. They're already the real weak link in that whole, I mean, they sell way less than all the big three, truck wise. And, the last thing Tundra needs is something like this. And we may not get a next generation Tundra if this is the way it goes and all those people defect for another brand. Those people are probably not coming back. And you can only rely on the old ones forever, because the old ones, the V8 ones did 1 million miles, no problem. But there's no going back to that old V8 for them. So it's, there's really not a whole lot you can do aside from figure it out. And try to, make it up to people, which I think is what Ram is doing very smartly with their longer powertrain warranty that they just introduced. Now they're doing 10-year, 100,000 miles to kind of ease people's worries about, this rough patch they've had for the past year or two. But I think Ram was smart to really nip it in the bud and say, look, we had a rough couple of years here with this new electrical platform for the Rams, with this refresh of them. And they know it, and they're owning it. And they're like, all right, well, we're slapping a giant warranty on it. I think if Toyota wants to really, keep this nice and tight, slap a big warranty on it. It's a Toyota. It shouldn't need the warranty anyway. But I give people that peace of mind that, okay, I'm buying a Toyota truck and this will last me, like I'm expecting it to. And if it doesn't, I got the warranty to back me up at least for the first 100,000 miles. I think, if this is really going to be, if it's another 100,000 of these things, yeah, if I was doing crisis management for Toyota, that would be my top thing, is slap a big warranty on yesterday and hope that saves some goodwill. And because if it's truly that bad, that's not good news. So I hope they figure it out quick. And that's crazy. I'll have to look into that some more. Thanks for bringing that to my attention, Mr. 705. And Danny says Toyota looks like they're becoming GM when they had the most recalled car in their history, the dreaded Chevy Vega. The most recalled GM of the 80s was the Citation due to the major rust issues at 2 years of ownership for some people. Yeah, there's a lot of bad quality stuff back in the 80s from a variety of brands. But yeah, bunch of stuff there from GM, and then you have the Pinto explosions, and Corvair, unsafe at any speed, and all those other things. I mean, it's just, yeah, there's a lot of those things in the past. I mean, even, early 90s, you remember the Ford Explorer rollover? That was a Firestone giant recall, and the hysteria of, oh no, you have an Explorer, it's going to have a blowout and roll over and kill you. And, so I mean, and companies have rebounded, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world, but certainly not something you want. And Taste Bud says, I saw BMW Alpina this week. It was super jealous. Super classy sleeper cars. Yeah, Alpinas are really cool. Yeah. And nice spot. And YH says they got 15 centimeters of snow here. Blue Blur was sliding like a beach. Nice. So I guess you're not running the streets here. I thought it was supposed to heat up whenever you're out there ripping it around in the Mustang Etch. So you got to melt that snow with the fury of your Mustang. Hope everything is nice and calm there. I know, the disappointment of the Blue Jays. I feel for you. Hopefully next year maybe it happens, but yeah, enjoy the snow if you can. And Lantern Tail says, if the Honda Prelude does well, could we see Toyota making the Celica? Since people are complaining about the Prelude being watered down, we could see the Celica have an edge if they do it right. Absolutely. And I think I don't think Prelude is going to be a success. I don't think it matters, though, because I think that Toyota already is planning on a Celica no matter what. All right, I think we're back. Apologies. Hopefully I didn't lose too many of you. It's Google Chrome. Google Chrome is crashing for me recently. Google Chrome's supposed to be the best thing to stream with here, but I need to figure out how to do an encoder because this stream, I think, did it crash on Wednesday too, or was it last Sunday where we had Chrome crashing on me here? I don't know if it's just this new Chrome redo they've done where now they have this Ask Google thing built in and everything. Maybe that screwed it up. I don't know. But sorry for the little interruption there, everyone. I will never just dip out without saying goodbye, I promise. So if you see me just drop, it's because of the connection or something. But anyway, Vishal, thanks so much. Also, I missed Chad. Thank you for a super chat. He says he saw a post with a new white Bronco license plate was what would or WWOJD. Nice. What would OJ do? That's funny. No, that's a good one. And Michelle, thanks so much for being a member for 19 months now. He says the new Toyota recall is the same issue. It's debris not cleared from the engine during production. Interesting. So what is okay? Well, thanks for the info. I appreciate that, Michelle. So even that though, I don't understand how there's so much debris that this is happening over a production run of over 100,000 plus. Like that just seems insane to me, and I don't know how that is existing. That seems really wild. But yeah, hopefully they get it figured out soon. But thank you for the info there, Michelle. And Outside Center, thank you so much for a super chat. They're asking, Supernurse fan, any opinions on the STI-B? Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit back, I think it was the Wednesday live, but yes, that's kind of a weird thing. So sorry for anyone that heard me talk about this before, but my initial thought was, why are they basing this on a car that is already 3 years old? And, my expectation for that was it was going to be, the Lavorg or, a wagon version of the WRX finally here in the States, because there's rumors that may actually finally be coming here. But this STI-B, I mean, I'm happy for it. I would welcome it with open arms and, again, be very excited about it, honestly. But I just, so right now it's a concept. They're not confirming anything. I mean, it's production ready. I mean, it's because it's all copy and paste parts, but it's production ready. And so they could build it quickly. And it's got the manual, so it's on the right path, because the S210 thing we saw last year in Tokyo was, the CVT only, which apparently in Japan, they'd only have CVT WRXs now, I think, is the thing that was told to me, which is insane. But regardless, yeah, I'm excited for the B, Performance B concept if it actually happens. Would it come to the States? I would hope so. It just seems weird I think the biggest sticking point for me with that was the whole thing with this new generation WRX was it's not based on Impreza anymore. And, that was very much an important thing. And yet This one, this B thing, is clearly an Impreza hatch that's had the WX stuff thrown on it. Thankfully, I mean, the good news is it doesn't have the stupid fender flares and the unpainted rear bumper that's going to look like garbage, and it looks like garbage already, but will look really bad once the sun hits it for a few years. So again, I'm not mad about it, but it's just, I always approach things from like a marketing standpoint, from like a PR person standpoint of like, you've gone on for years and years about how it's not related to the Impreza anymore, and it isn't. The new WX is a completely different thing. But it's like, so is this going to be called the Impreza STI? Or is WX going to become this fluid thing now, which also makes me nervous that then they're going to slap the WX badge on like a Crosstrek with the turbo motor, which I wouldn't be mad about either. But it's just like, then we're just going to start watering the WX brand down, and, that's a slippery slope too. So it's just kind of weird. Like, why not? You already have the WX. Everyone knows, like, WX is the sedan. Like, all that crap you saw in the B, just put it in the WX, call it a day. If you want to have a hatchback or a wagon version, do it properly. Grab the Lavorg, slap all the WX stuff on it that you want, and make that the STI, and you have an STI wagon, which would make people even more excited than an STI hatch, I'm pretty sure. So, like, I don't know. It's, to me, I guess it's par for the course. It's more business as usual with Subaru, with head scratching decisions. But again, I'm not mad about it. Just kind of weird. But if that's what we get, I'm happy for it. And maybe they will. I'll give them another chance to win me back over as a Super Dorks fan instead of a GR Corolla fan, as I am now. So because that is the spiritual successor of the STI in my mind. So I'd be happy for them to retain the crown that is rightfully theirs. But yeah, I'm curiously optimistic that will be something we get and something that actually is good. But I appreciate the reminder to drink, everyone, from P. Mitchell. But yeah, but I hope it does happen. The more hot hatches we have, the better. I don't care how weird it is from a branding standpoint or whatever. If we get something that's a manual, all-wheel drive, fast, fun thing, I'm here for it. But personally, the other concept there looked really cool, and that seems like the actual future of STI. And that I'm excited to see that materialize in a production form. That's the kind of thing, like if they do that with the same fun of Ioniq 5N, like that'd be real cool in my opinion. So I'd be more excited for that. Because you're not gonna have the Boxer Rumble with the new STI most likely and other things, so it's never gonna be quite the same. So for me, I'm ready for the next, step. But for everyone that again just wants, more of the same old stuff, it'll be fun, I think. So yeah, I'm excited either way. And thanks for the question there, Outside Center. I appreciate it. And let me see here. Where were we? Let's see. So man, I'm really behind. I apologize, guys. I'm glad we didn't lose all the chats here though. But all right, I'm gonna try and go quickly here. If I don't do well with being concise, then I will switch to member only stuff, just so we're not too far behind, because I don't want to make members wait, an hour to get an answer to the question here. But Tastebud says, serious question for all you North guys. I have summer tires on my car, Conti ECS02. Will I be fine in winter in Dallas? I don't want to do winter tires. To be honest, I think I'll be fine with summers. The basic rules for summer tires are you're fine above 40 degrees for sure, no matter what the conditions are. Under 40 degrees, you're fine as long as there's no precipitation. If it's, wet, then those things turn into hockey pucks and you're, in trouble. Now, if it's dry, you're actually completely fine. And you're actually probably better off because you have better grip still, even a summer tire under 40 degrees if it's dry compared to a winter tire, which is just so much squishier and not as grippy. And actually, Engineering Explained did a really good video testing this back when he had his S2000. And he did braking tests, ABS stops, from 60 or whatever, with, I can't remember the name of the video, but if you search like winter versus summer tires, Engineering Explained, grip or something like that, hopefully it'll come up. It was with his S2000, yellow S2000. And
he tested it, and like he had much better stopping distances in the summer tires, even in freezing temps, as long as it was dry. So that's what I always, those were my rules for the Bullet back when it was only on the summer tires too, is that's the case. But if you have rain even and you're under 40 degrees, or wet roads under 40 degrees, be very cautious. And I think, obviously you don't want to sacrifice your grip all the time, but I will say there's some very good high performance all season tires. The Michelin Pilot Sport 4S, or the 4 all season tire, is very good. But I loved, the last year I had the Bullet there, I put on Continental Extreme Contact DWS, I think it was. So another Conti, so if you like the Contis, I mean, they have that fantastic DWS all season that gives you fantastic grip in the summer still. Probably not as good as full summer, obviously, but not that far off. And if you're going to be always worried about freezing temps every once in a while, in Dallas, it might be worth just going for that. And then still really good summer traction, and you don't have to worry in the winter about switching over to full-blown winter tires. So that can help. Or if you just don't want to give up performance too much, but you don't mind swapping tires, then get those all seasons, and that'll handle any kind of weather you get in Dallas for the most part. And with like the ice storms, and things like that, like winter tires can help you a little bit, but obviously you're not allowed to run studs in Dallas, I'm sure. So like on ice, you're not going to really have anything really save you there anyway. So, but I just want to try and avoid driving if you can for those kinds of instances. But hopefully it helps you a little bit, taste bud, and best of luck with deciding what to do there. And Outside Center, thank you so much for another super chat. They say, tell Jim Farley to put the Focus RS engine, transmission, and all-wheel drive system in the Maverick and make a Maverick RS. I need a modern GMC Cyclo. Thanks. Noted. Yes. Yeah. If I'm going to another Ford event, I haven't been on one in a little while, but if I get invited to another Ford event, I will absolutely try and pass along. Although I've never actually met Jim Farley. Maybe I've seen him at an auto show, like off in the distance or something. But I know stuff like that, it seems real easy to do. I mean, the only thing about like the RS stuff in particular, the all-wheel drive system is actually kind of the same all-wheel drive system we have already in the Lobo. That was kind of the thing with Lobo, is you get the cool rear diff that does the torque vectoring from Focus RS. It's a descendant of that. It's not exactly the same. It's a more advanced kind of version actually since then. But Lobo does have that. If I'm being devil's advocate here, I think Jim Farley would tell you what you need to do is just buy a Lobo and tune it. Obviously you're not going to get the transmission there. That's going to be the real thing. But if you're okay with an automatic, you do a tune on a Lobo and do a few other little tweaks to the Lobo, stick your tires, maybe upgrade things even a little bit more suspension wise. You're kind of as close as you're going to get to that. And yeah, I just don't know what the limits are for the transmission from a power standpoint and stuff. But I'm hoping there'd be something there you could do. It would be really cool to see. And maybe some people actually have at SEMA. I'm curious if there's any Lobo builds at SEMA this year. But I'll be sure to pass it along if I ever saw Jim Farley and I had the liberty to to speak my mind. All the rants I've said on here, there's plenty of things I could go into, but that would definitely be on the list. I'd love to see a modern Cyclone as well. And thank you again for the super chat there, Outside Center. All right, let me see. So where are we here? So yeah, Danny's weighing in on the tires there. He says, and Tastebud says he's got a rear-wheel drive at Nissan Z. Yeah, I definitely hope, all my advice holds. But Z's don't do great because they got such wide tires. That'd be a little bit sketchy if you don't have dry roads, I think. Because honestly, they're a handful in the rain, even in warm temperatures. So I wouldn't pick Z to be a good car for bad weather. Take it easy for sure. Let me see. So why Etch is asking follow-up about the M2 there. The new one has the same engine power as the M3 and the M4 for the M2. Yeah, and that's great. It's just that, again, like didn't need that much. If you want a coupe with that much power, you just get an M4. I mean, it's a little bit smaller, but I don't know. To me, it's again just like more of the same, and it just I think M2 is better when it's not more of the same. Usual BMW stuff. And let me see. So I see the discussion there about the temperature, so I won't rehash all that. But let me see. YH also says he doesn't like how they just put an M badge on everything these days. Yeah. And I see YH says, yeah, good call. The GTR would be a beast. Yeah, I totally. Like I said, that'd be my move if you need something like that. And Lantern says the F10 M5 is very under the radar compared to the other M5s. Yeah, I mean, I knew a few people that really enjoyed the F10, and they have depreciated a lot. So they are cheap. So it's probably a really good time to buy them because they are underappreciated. I don't know. To me, it doesn't have the character of the NA V8 and the E39, and the V10 is just incomparable. It's just so magical. Oh man. Yeah, I still love those V10s. They sound so good. The high red line, just for me, that's the thing that always gets me going. The ideal car for me is something with a high red line that sounds fantastic. Like I love high red lines. It's nothing better. And let me see here. So I see more discussion there about the snow and everything. Danny says they had a crazy blizzard 96. Yeah. And we had another one in 93. Yeah, that was crazy. I remember, I vaguely remember that in Pittsburgh, mostly just, seeing the pictures and videos from when I was a kid and stuff. But Jordan says, do you think we will ever have an environment-friendly replacement for rubber inflatable tires for vehicles? There's a lot of companies working on this. In Europe, especially, they're really, they've already figured out, okay, well, we electrify everything and that, takes care of the emissions coming out of the exhaust pipe. But they also understand that there's noise pollution. They understand that there's particulate matter that gets, shredded off of these tires all the time. And that stuff also can go into the air and cause health issues and all that other stuff. So Europe is working on this. And so, I mean, we won't have anything like that here for decades, I'm sure, in the States. But, for the rest of the world, they are working on that. I know that like Goodyear and others have prototype tires that have less rubber and airless tires that are just kind of having these like wavy, like springy things in them. It kind of, so there's a lot of experimentation with tires. And I've seen some, stuff where people claim, oh, like this is going to be the tire of the future and we'll see what happens. But, yeah, they're working on new blends, new compounds that shed less so that they last longer as well, but also have less of those rubber emissions and in the things that gives off just with the wear of those, and minimizing even when they're smoking and stuff, all that gives off all kinds of terrible cancer causing agents and stuff. I think they're all working to improve that stuff. It's just, a chemistry problem that they're working to, improve and solve. Because like, sure, you can have stuff that gets rid of all that stuff overnight, but then it doesn't do all the tire stuff it needs to do well. So it's always this balancing act of, hitting your targets as far as what people expect from this tire, while also, again, trying to make progress in these other ways without compromise. That's always the engineer way, is like, let's try and do this without compromising and advance things. And so I think they'll get there eventually, but I think it's going to be a while still. But especially with these heavier vehicles, it'd be nice if they figure it out sooner. But I think we'll probably get solid state batteries figured out first, and that'll make these EVs lighter, and then you'll have less of the shedding that you have now on tires, with the lighter weight, hopefully. But great question, Jordan. And Vishal says, what's up, Matt? No other spots, but went to a drone show and concert last night for a grand opening of a new shopping center near my area, and it was a fun night. That's awesome. Yeah, drone shows are really cool. I've just seen them on TV and stuff, but like all the New Year's drone shows and stuff. I much prefer drones to fireworks. I don't know about you guys. I'm not a huge fireworks fan, honestly. Between all the times it woke up our daughter, whenever she was young, and I know it just wreaks havoc on dogs and cats and little kids even and stuff. Just for me, drones are way cooler, and you can do so much more things with them too, but they're so much less disruptive, and Yeah, for me, I'm all about the drone shows. It's very cool. So I'm glad you had fun at that. That's awesome. It sounds like a baller grand opening of a shopping center. They bring in a drone show. That's legit. Um, and let me see. Danny's talking about the snow in '96 there. And Chad says when it snowed here at the beginning of the year, it shut down the Florida Panhandle. I don't remember how much we got, but it filled the bed of the Maverick. Wow, that's a good amount. B. Mitchell says pizza delivery in a Fiat would be appropriate. That's true, absolutely. And I'll have to put on a Mario mustache while I'm at it if I do go out and start delivering. So we'll see what happens, but that could very well be what I end up using it for. I got plenty of miles on this lease. I have 5,000 miles a year, and I'm at like 1150 for the miles or something. So like 1/4 of the way on the miles that I should have on that thing, basically at this point. But let me see. Tastebud says, no shame in the game. I DoorDash in my Z and make $30 an hour easy. Tunes and driving and getting paid is a vibe. That's awesome. Cool. Well, I've been hearing more and more about this. So I may actually make the leap here if I can't improve other things financially here. That could be something fun. So I appreciate this. I feel like I'd love if I do make this leap, I might have to do like an invite only DoorDasher, Uber Eats live stream or something where we chat about maybe you guys can give me some of your best tips or something on how to do it well. But Mick says, do you recommend the BRZ? Absolutely. I love BRZs. They're fantastic. Every generation is fantastic. I've done a ton of content on them. Definitely just search my name or the old Super Fan name with BRZ if you're looking for the first gen content, or if you're looking for second gen content. I've done a lot. I absolutely love BRZs. I've lived with them for weeks, even for these new ones, and I had the old one for a couple of years, and love BRZs. Highly recommend. Mr. 705 says, if you ever did do DoorDash or Uber Eats, you could vlog the day. I'm sure there's enough of us that would watch. Yeah, that could be a fun way to try and monetize it a little bit more. Yeah, I'd have to get better at vlogging. That's never been a strength of mine because it's just something that's, especially when you're out in public, it's a little bit awkward for me. I've already got like social awkwardness sometimes where I'm just like not wanting to cause a scene, and then having a camera up and being a vlogger in public is a little cringy for me. But if I just vlog me driving in the car, kind of talking about what I'm doing or something, that could be kind of fun. So yeah, maybe we'll see what happens. That could be something I could try and do possibly. Although I'm sure there's other people that probably vlog what that's like. But yeah, I could always share my own experiences too. I'm kind of lucky that I'm also in an area where hopefully I know a lot of people do DoorDash and do all that, and the people around here, it's a little bit of a nicer area. So I would hope that there'd be more generous tipping and people I could deliver to pretty close by where I wouldn't need to drive a long distance to do it. Because I know other people that have to do it. They got to drive, a super long distance to get to the good area where they can make a bunch of money and stuff. So, yeah, I may be doing that here the next month or two. We'll see. But Danny says his New Jersey town has a very old local Domino's delivery vehicle, which I talked about a couple weeks ago. It was a 1990 Camry wagon. That's funny. Actually, a funny thing I saw too a couple weeks ago. This would have been a really good like TikTok or something, but I was too busy I was in too much of a hurry to do it. But I went to McDonald's and just grabbing a quick bite for lunch in between filming stuff. And there was a Domino's delivery vehicle with the sign on the roof and everything that was in the drive-thru line at McDonald's. It would have been a really funny, like, man, like even Domino's delivery drivers won't eat at Domino's. They got to go to McDonald's. But it's just kind of a funny thing to see. But Vishal says the upcoming Honda hybrids sound pretty interesting. Also weird that the 12th gen Civic is being talked about already and still feels like the 11th gen came out recently. I know, it is kind of funny how I feel that way about so many things. Car wise and otherwise too. But yeah, I mean, 2022 model year was the first for this new Civic. And so, we're coming up on 4 years, and, once you're at the 5-year mark, everyone's like, that's kind of when they're expecting something new. So I agree. It does seem very weird, but I guess, yeah, I hadn't honestly thought about it, but you're right. I guess we could see something debut next year or the year after. If they do, what everyone else seems to be doing, though, it might just be a heavy refresh. And again, I don't think they really need to do much. I still think Civic is fantastic. The only thing they need to do is lower the price tag, which the new generation will not help with. But that's the biggest problem, is the price tag. And it's just, Anyway, I'll have more thoughts. You will see. Actually, you'll see this tomorrow. The embargo drops tomorrow morning for Nissan Sentra review. And I talk about Civic and the pricing and comparisons, which the pricing is under embargo, so I cannot talk about pricing for Sentra either. But you will hear my thoughts tomorrow morning if you want to watch that video. But stay tuned for my thoughts on Sentra tomorrow. But yeah, I'm not allowed to say anymore. I want to say more, but I'm not allowed to say more. So we can discuss that on Wednesday, which I'm hoping Wednesday will work out. Wednesday is going to be a travel day for me, and with the flying situation that's going on, might be a little tricky. So if my flights miraculously stay on time and everything is smooth, I'm hoping to be home for the Wednesday live stream. So, but hopefully, yeah. So I may not be here for the Wednesday live. We'll see what happens. If nothing else, I'll always be doing the Sunday ones. But anyway, Chad says in our area, some Domino's have branded Nissan Leafs with a graphic wrap. That's cool. And Danny says most of the time the pizza delivery cars in my area are 6th gen Camrys. Oh, nice. Yeah, around here they use like the one has a Kia Rio. I don't really remember the others, but I'm a frequent Domino's customer, so but I never get delivery. I always just go pick it up because press cars, put miles on them. I never get anything delivered to me. I'm always like, oh, sweet, I can put miles on it. But anyway, Theodore says, why are auto shows more in the cold months instead of the warm months? You would think they would make more money when it's warmer outside. I mean, that's what Detroit thought, and they switched to the summer show, and then no one showed up. And I think the reason why is that winter months are a prime time to do indoor convention center things because you can't go outside and do fun things. You're not going on vacation typically. No one's got anything better to do. And so it's like, okay, well, I can't go outside. I can't do any of the fun summer stuff. Well, I guess we'll go and, sit in some cars for, Saturday morning or whatever. And I think that's why it makes the most sense to do them then. Because you have a lot more competition once you get into the warmer months. And especially, I think it's extra smart when a lot of the, auto shows like Chicago and some of the others where they time it so it's like after football stuff. So, even in Pittsburgh here, we have ours. It's always like Valentine's Day weekend, which is honestly kind of a stupid weekend to have it because like that's part of the reason why I hadn't gone to a lot of them is if you're in a relationship, like, I mean, some girls are cool with just going and sitting in a convention center and sitting in cars on Valentine's Day or on, that weekend. But a lot of people have other things they're doing that weekend in particular. But, if you are steer clear of the football, which apparently it's also like, I think there's a Steelers game that is on or was on, I don't know. But, competing with that stuff's never a good idea, for anything. So I think a lot of them, as long as it's post-February, mid to late February, and you have nothing better to do, that's prime time for that indoor stuff. So I think that's why, but I don't know. And Lantern Tail says, does Honda have a Crown equivalent or do they only have Acura as a luxury brand? Yeah, Acura is as high as they go. Yeah. Chad says, do you think that Infiniti sedans looking like regular Nissans hurt sales? Maybe, but I don't think most Americans understood that like the Q50 was a Skyline Nissan in Japan. So I think they probably got away with that for the most part. So I don't think that was the problem. I just think that it was Nissan just kind of lost the innovative approach and they just kind of fell behind in the interior game. They fell behind in a lot of ways. They just, didn't have the money invested in them like they used to. And I think that's ultimately what hurt their sales for the most part, at least in my opinion. B. Mitchell says, I'm old enough to remember that the reason for all the electrical outlets and parking lots in North Dakota and northern Minnesota were only for engine block heaters. Interesting. I didn't know that's why they had them. That's cool and very nice to offer that to people. That's funny. I didn't know that's what that was for. I never really knew who used engine block heaters. I guess if you're in those places where you need to warm up your engine block before you start it just for durability reasons. I always thought that was like an Alaska thing or like really intense places. I've never used one. I've never even seen one in action. That's interesting. And Joe, thanks for stopping by. Hope you're doing well. And Luke says, sorry about my non-car comments. I'm just overwhelmed and excited at the same time. Hey, I'm happy for you. And yeah, it's always fun to talk about non-car stuff here as well from time to time. And yeah, hope it all goes smoothly with the house redo there, Luke. And Lantern Tail says, for the junkyard videos, could you also focus on the more regular and run-of-the-mill cars? These cars are actually used a lot and can have insane amount of miles on them. Yeah, if it's something that's out a little bit interesting as far as like the mileage or the wear and tear or the mods, then I will. I'm open to adapting those videos to whatever people want to see at the junkyard. But I think, the way that they're going so far seems to be doing pretty well, and it seems to be growing, from a viewership standpoint, but, we'll see. But I think, they're already long enough. If they're an hour long and then I'm losing people on some of the more ordinary stuff, I'm just nervous about that. I think it's the way I like doing it the way I am now, where I just kind of focus on the quirky stuff, the weird mods, the cool stuff, and the real, even if it's not a wild car, just like things that are really old that you haven't seen in a long time, and not focusing on the 2010 Malibus that are a dime a dozen in the lot, or the zillions of PT Cruisers or whatever the case is, and just trying to keep it interesting. In the future there's a possibility that I can live stream some of the walks, in which case you'll see everything. Even if I'm not diving into every car, it could be at least you're seeing every row of the yard and everything that's out there. But I'll continue to monitor feedback, and thank you for your feedback. And if more people agree with you and want to see ordinary stuff too, happy to film that. And I do always, again, try and keep an eye out for high mileage stuff, just with the visual signs of, that typically. Because if you see something high mileage, that's always interesting, even if the car isn't interesting in and of itself. So I'll always keep an eye out for that. And but yeah, I'm excited for this next video. It's gonna be fun, and yeah, I really am enjoying these. And thank you for watching on Lantern Tales. I appreciate that. And Hamburger says, do you find it interesting in Asian countries like India, families can own one small engine motorcycle used for transporting their entire family, yet in the West we require massive cars and trucks? Yes, it is really wild, and this is why I think it's really good for anyone, especially in America, to travel overseas and experience how other people live their lives, and really the sharp contrast of just people, things that we think we need here. And there's some geographical differences that require, longer distance things here, where you don't have the luxury of having everything in, 2 square miles or whatever, and places where you do have that, like in New York City or something. This is why a lot of people don't have cars there either and are on bikes. And you see more of that international flair in those city centers where it's really built up like that, because you can do that, and you have decent public transportation, you have all those other things, which obviously just doesn't work in the middle of Alabama or something, So, there's those differences for sure that we even have here in America. But yeah, it's and it also, it's inspiring in a way, and it's also just kind of helping us to see how good we have it, that we all have a vehicle that covers us from bad weather which you don't have the luxury of in a motorcycle or things like that, but yeah, so many people, this was fascinating, even watching the Top Gear specials, the Vietnam special, where you see this sea of motorcycles and mopeds and stuff like that. And it's wild. And yeah, people, are transporting couches on these things, and, all kinds of mattresses and stuff, and they find a way. And yeah, it's really impressive. And yeah, we can learn a lot from from the hardworking nature of other countries, for sure. But Steven says, my dad wants to look at a 2016 Leaf. Nice. Yeah. So you guys are already on the right track there with our comments from, was it an hour ago? We were talking about the Leaf. Oh, that's awesome. Hope he enjoys the Leaf if he decides to take it for a test drive there. Let me see. Chad says if you buy CPO, then you often get a much better and longer warranty than buying new. Maybe that's the way to go if you have your heart set but are worried about reliability. Absolutely. That's a good way to do it for sure. Jordan says Nissan should bring the Maxima back with extremely reliable hybrid powertrain, full interior and exterior redesign, run a maximize your fuel campaign. That'd be fun. Any kind of those maximizing things would be a fun tie-in. And that's why I thought the Maxima, the initial plan of that being an EV would have been great. And maybe someday it will be, but it sounds like that's been kind of put on the back burner along with many other EV projects. But honestly, like even with Ultima on the chopping block, I just would like to see Ultima stick around, let alone Maxima too. But I think Nissan would be smart to do the same thing they did with Sentra, where Sentra is, there's little tweaks. Again, you'll see more tomorrow. There's little tweaks, but there is still some stuff that is shared with the last generation, and I think that just doing a heavy redo on Ultima would be a very smart choice because I think it'll work. I think it'll work for Sentra. I think you're seeing it work for Jetta, where it's the same thing. I think Volkswagen screwed up by not renewing Passat and doing the same thing of, giving Passat a nip tuck and sending it on its way. I think that would have been a very valuable competitor since we're down to, 4 or 5 of these, full-size sedans now. And it's just, or mid-size, I guess, but it's just crazy. So, I agree. It'd be nice to see Maxima, but I'll just take Ultima even. All right. Lantern Tail says, I have seen a two-door RAV4 first generation. This thing is so tiny. I don't know which is dumber, a two-door crossover or a coupe SUV. To me, two-door crossover is fun because it's like, if you don't, it's like, Defender 90 is, a modern example of that. You can get that in a two-door. That's what the 90 version is. And to me, it's cool. Wrangler two-door, obviously doing it for a long time. Those are a little more intense, obviously not crossovers, they're actual SUVs. But I think it's fun. Obviously, there's no business case for that as far as regular crossovers these days because everyone, needs to have tons of practicality. But I see actually two-door RAV4s not frequently, but I see that first gen, at least 1 or 2 a month. And it's always fun to see that there's so many people that still are keeping those things going out on the road. It's great. Danny says the machines at the Toyota engine factories are leaving debris in the engine. So it's basically a machining fault. Gotcha. So then I can't believe they haven't figured that out yet. Like the millions of dollars they spend on that tooling and stuff, to have it go that long without any detection of that issue is just kind of unfathomable that even got to that point. That's crazy. And Danny says the two-door Gen 1 RAV4 is smaller than a current gen BRZ, which is wild. Yeah. Oh yeah, they're tiny for sure. It's super light. I'm sure they're lighter than a BRZ too. But Fuchs says, how do you think people will look back at the 3-cylinder turbo in the long run in the, what is that hatch from Toyota? I think that they will hopefully look back on it well because, that motor has its basis in rally. And that's, when we're talking about authenticity with these, hot hatches and stuff, the greatest hot hatches came from rally cars and being direct descendants of that. And so to me, like that motor, even though again, that has also had, some issues and not perfect, but like the charm of that is the fact that again, it's based in that rally thing. And that's one of the reasons I love it. It's peaky, which is great for a race car, not great for a street car, but it adds fun and drama. And just, everyone's going to have different opinions and, I'm sure a lot of people are going to hate it now and hate it forever. But for me, it's cool. And I'm into it, obviously. So, and Outside Center says the Directs went downhill when they separated from the Impreza. Yeah. I think that I like the last gen though. And the last generation, the STI was the best handling STI they've ever done. S209, I mean, I reviewed it. I had an S209 for a week. Very fortunate. one of the coolest press cars, I think, as far as rarity goes and stuff. And that thing was the best handling car of, I think it was 2019 when I did that. I crowned it the best handling thing I drove in 2019. I mean, phenomenal car. Had all the good perks of the old school stuff. Had the EJ still, and just such a good car. So I think that they were still good. I mean, the FA in that generation, wasn't as good. So those still, when I see one of those drive by with an exhaust, it still doesn't sit right with me. Just the old school Diverix fan in me, I guess. But that STI generation, great car. Love that generation. But I agree with you about the regular Diverix, and I still look very fondly on the cutoff in 14 there. That 14 wide body, just so cool. I love them so much, still do. And Chad says, logistically, it's crazy the amount of cars that are produced in Japan. I know a lot are made here, but for such a small area, I know what you mean. Japan is not a huge place, and they do make a lot of stuff. It is impressive for sure. And Vishal's on to Fuchs game here. And Danny says, just make the Forester XT again. Put the 2.4 turbo from the Outback, plop it in the engine bay of the Forester. I know. It's not hard. I gave him a little nudge at the Forester Wilderness event, what was that, a month and a half ago or so? I was like, a lot of people were hoping this thing had the turbo in the Wilderness this time around. I'm like, people would love to see it. And without trying to be like a complete dick, but I'm just like, come on, what are you waiting for? I don't know. I'm guessing they crunch the numbers and they just don't have enough sales to make it happen. But if they justify it for Outback, though, they must be able to justify it for Forester. I don't know. Again, gotta just leave your expectations at the door for Subaru. But anyway, so Lantern says, what Subaru can do is take a GR Corolla and make it their own, like the BRZ in 86. Yeah, that would be fun if Toyota was willing to share. I'd be all about that. And sorry I missed the other super chats that came in here. Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, have you ever come across a Focus EV? Yeah, I feel like I actually see a couple a year around here that are still hanging on. I don't know what they do, like 80 miles of range or something. And what was I saw another weird, low range EV the other day, and I was like, man, I can't believe that's still on the road. I can't remember what it was, but it's always fun to see those when you do. They're probably dirt cheap now. I haven't looked, but I'm sure they're almost nothing to buy. Let me see. Chad also says, thank you for the super chat, Chad. He says, if there's no live, call your Senate representative. I'm not sure what that is referring to, but definitely make your voices heard. I think that's more important now than ever with your state representatives. Let me see here. So Lantern Tales, sorry, I already covered that. Chad says, we were watching a movie and there was a Jeep Scrambler in it. I thought it was really cool, not too big like I think the four-door Gladiator is. Yeah, Scrambler was a really fun little option, and it would have been fun to see them make that again, but with how terrible Gladiator is selling, don't expect any new variants of that. I'll be amazed if it even sticks around. And Gary says, GTI 380 has been good so far, but I only got 4,500 miles on it. I'm glad you're enjoying it. And he says, how have I been? I've been better. It's been a rough year. I'm still hoping for YouTube to turn around here, but yeah. I won't get into it, but it's safe to say this has been the worst year professionally for me. Worst earnings I've ever had, worst views I've ever had. Not headed in a good direction. So I hope things improve, but hasn't been great, honestly. But hopefully things keep turning around. We'll see what happens. B. Mitchell says, at SEMA, Ford Racing put the larger turbo from a Mustang 2.3 EcoBurst on a Lobo, and there was supposedly a lot of interest in it. Okay, well, that's great to hear, and I hope that message was received by Ford, and that's cool. I mean, I guess we'll see what Lobo sales end up being like. I've seen maybe 2 Lobos the entire year. And there's plenty of them on dealer lots. I mean, the one dealer I work with, they have a bunch of Lobos. That's one of the ones I've been like, do I wait for a press car? Do I just go and film it at the dealer? Is the hype already passed for Lobo or not? Maybe the hype is not passed. If there's interest in SEMA for at least a bigger turbo version of it, that's interesting. Thanks for the little scoop there, B Mitchell. That's cool. I hope they do more with Maverick. I think there's a lot more they could do. The Lobo is a good starting point, but I mean, make a full blown ST with more power, or do the RS and go crazy with it. I think that would be so fun. And Danny says, sounds like you need to hear the 2008 RS4 with that 4.2 liter V8, 8250 red line, 6-speed manual, and good Lord, so sounding with the proper exhaust. Yes, even stock, they're fantastic. So those were new when I was at the dealership. I worked at an Audi, BMW, Porsche dealer from 07 to 2011. There were fun times had in that generation RS4. I have personally been behind the wheel at Redline in those things many times. I've always wanted to review one on the channel, have not had an opportunity, because now, especially, they're really getting up in price and people are very much, hoarding them now that they're so sought after and very special cars. They've always been special, but especially now, I think that's a car that's primed to be big money someday. So I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to review one, but they are fantastic. Absolutely. I love those things. And Wyatt says, maybe here's an idea, make some POV while doing Uber Eats. I would watch. That could be a fun idea too. Just do it that way. That would certainly make vlogging easier if I'm just throwing on a hat and talking. Yeah, that's a good idea. I appreciate the suggestion. Just kind of talking about what I'm doing. Yeah, although I don't know. I think some of the stuff too, though, you don't want to give away your spot, and you don't want to it's one of those things where if you share too much, then other people will hop on, and you don't. There's some of that you need to protect, I think, at some point as well. I mean, it's not like anyone has a monopoly on any one area, but if you're like, hey, look, my spot pays super well, then it's like, oh wow, well, everyone's gonna go and hang out in my spot to try and get that. So I don't know. That'd be one of those things where oversharing can kind of bite you in the butt. I don't know. But because I think that's something that I haven't fully appreciated as much in the past, but I feel like there's some times where you need to kind of hold your cards a little closer to your vest. But because it's in a competitive world out there these days, But Vishal says, totally agree. Civic pricing is absurd. It's what scared me away from it when I was shopping last year. Yeah, it's a shame that they've lost so much lost touch of where pricing needs to be for those. But they're still selling really well. So hey, I guess they're laughing all the way to the bank about it. And so until sales get bad, they'll keep on doing their thing. Vishal says, if a commute is more highway than city, are standard gas cars better than hybrids for that? I know hybrids tend to be less efficient on the highway than the city. They're less efficient on the highway, but there still is typically some efficiency that is an improvement. Now, if you were doing exclusively highway driving, you just got to run the math on how much your differences in highway MPG, the rating, at least you can do that math hypothetically of, okay, if I get 36 in a regular gas and I get 39 in a hybrid, is 3 MPG better worth the $1,500 upcharge or whatever it is for a hybrid? And figure out if that's worth it. But even on the highway, if you are driving totally on the highway in a hybrid, you still have a lot of engine off opportunities. You're not always climbing, you're not always accelerating. And for those times when you're hitting your brakes, you're slowing down for traffic, you get caught in some traffic jams or whatever the case might be, or even just coasting down hills, things like that. There is opportunity to have a lot of nice engine off there. And obviously, whenever you are off the gas in a regular gas vehicle, you're, also saving gas there too. So you still get some of that, but complete engine off with regen that the hybrid does, where you can juice that battery a little bit, which can help you. And that's kind of what I've noticed, especially the more modern Toyota hybrids, is even if you are constantly still on the gas and stuff a bunch, it's more so that especially these newer hybrids, like this new generation of the RAV4 I just reviewed. Like that's another one where like it's really able to do hybrid and electric propulsion a lot longer than you might expect. And so you have, even on the highway at higher speeds, the ability sometimes, especially if you take it easy, where you can do a pass fully electrically, or you can, do some light accelerating with that without having to kick the gas engine on still. So I think there are still benefits for sure. I think really, unless we're talking about enthusiast stuff, or we're talking about something where it's your whole thing is the engine. For commuter vehicles, everything should be hybrid, because you're just wasting so much gas at red lights and inching up and hitting the brakes and sitting behind people. Because I think that's, people don't really appreciate unless you live in the middle of nowhere and you never are seeing taillights in front of you. Like anytime you're slowing down for that idiot that's going too slow, or you're just in normal commuting traffic, there's a lot of pedal off, brake on, light gas just to speed up a little bit, and off, and all that stuff can be electric in these newer systems, versus in the past where you had to do a lot more gas engine on and off. There's now more extended engine off capability, which I think is why it makes sense. If you're commuting somewhere and you can afford the premium for the hybrid, absolutely go for a hybrid. It's just, you're leaving money on the table otherwise. But let me see here. So where are we? So sorry, I just reloaded the comments on me here. We are catching up though, so I appreciate that everyone's helped me to catch up here a little bit. But Jordan says, prediction question: what car brand do you think will drop a commercial during the Super Bowl, and would it be for an unveiled vehicle or one that's already been announced? That kind of timing, I don't know. I don't know, really. I mean, I do know that like they're going to be, more full blown with production and starting up with production for like the plug-in hybrid RAV4 around that time. So there could be some marketing push there, but I don't think they're even going to do anything until the spring as far as RAV4 marketing. So I'm trying to think of the companies like, I mean, it's usually the big three that like doing ads, especially in the Super Bowl. So, but really there's nothing. Ford doesn't have anything to show off, I don't think. They may finally choose to like reveal their little $30,000 or sub $30,000 truck-ish electric thing they've been talking about. Maybe, they finally show that there, in a commercial. Other than that, I mean, GM, I don't think the Bolt is really the market. I don't think Super Bowl watchers are going to be really a good target demographic for Bolt, really. So I'm trying to think of just anything else that's kind of coming in the next, 4 months or so here. And there's nothing that jumps out at me as being, enticing. Maybe like the new Grand Wagoneer could be a good time to kind of push that a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's about all I got. Probably nothing else that would move the needle. Maybe we'll finally see a new Fast and Furious trailer though for the final saga. That's something they like doing in the Super Bowl, and I think it's about time, because they've been filming stuff I think this year, right? So I'm hoping that maybe we see. I think, is that supposed to come out next year, the new Fast and Furious? I don't know, but that's the only other thing I could probably speculate on. Guyver is saying cold starts are any ambient temperature, even in summer, so you could plug in a block heater at all times if you're a fanatic. The closer the engine is operating temp, the better. That's true. I gotcha. Yeah, good point. And Chad says 11/5 was donut day, apparently, and Slade did a commercial with the frunk filled with donuts while doing donuts. That's fun. I missed that. That's cool. It's always fun when they have fun with those kinds of things. And Guyver also says machining debris is another reason for early break-in oil changes when the engine is new. True, but with most other cars, that's always been like a non-issue pretty much. I mean, there's always a tiny bit sometimes, but it's not so much machining debris, I think, from the production equipment, but more so just like, kind of smoothing out the cylinders yourself, just using the engine and stuff that makes it advisable. But you're right. I mean, that has been kind of a good idea for some stuff. It seems like in the past 10 years, that's been largely irrelevant as far as at least official recommendations goes and stuff. But I know people who are really crazy about oil changes, they do, do that nice and early. And I mean, it can make sense for sure, especially if you're just trying to play it safe. Doesn't hurt, I don't think. Although sometimes cars do have break-in kind of additives in the oil. You kind of want to leave in there a little bit longer, but in the first 1,000 miles or something, I'm sure you can swap it out, and maybe that helps a little bit. Yeah. And YH says Japan is nothing but a bunch of islands and no resources, and yet they're one of the most advanced and rich countries. I salute you, Japan, and thanks for the GTR, aka Godzilla. Yeah, I mean, well, I think Japan has some resources, right? I mean, they have a bunch of great water sources, and yeah, I don't know what else they have. I don't know anything about it, but I thought they were not completely devoid of resources, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I do respect Japan a lot for so many things. And Cypress says, had a 2018 WRX brand new, worst car I had ever owned. Everything from the factory tuning, extreme rev hang, clunky gearbox, throttle delay, weird clutch grab, comp tune still didn't make it much better. Interesting. I mean, there's so many people though that mod them still. I see them all run around with the exhaust and a bunch of stuff done to them. But yeah, it's sad that they still didn't figure out the rev hang. I remember the rev hang in that generation. It wasn't as bad as some others. Like that first generation of the Turbo SI was really bad. And there's some others too, like the regular Corolla hatch, terrible rev hang in that too. But yeah, that's a shame you didn't have a good time with it. I mean, I remember I reviewed a couple of them and like I didn't love it, but it was decent for the time, but sad you had a terrible experience. STI would have definitely been the answer, I think, because you get all the other perks of the WRX, but all the good stuff, and get rid of all the bad stuff that WRX has, really. So I love that generation STI still. But Michelle says, Toyota teased a new GR addition to the lineup a few days ago. GR Camry, one can dream. I hadn't heard that. Are we sure it's GR and not GR Sport? Because I could see a GR Sport Camry, because I talked about that already, with RAV4 getting it, that could very easily be copy and pasted into Camry. But I hadn't heard about it in GR Edition. I'll look that up. Was it in the new Grip little anime series they did? Because otherwise, I mean, sometimes that stuff takes forever. So they could be teasing a next generation of a GR86, which, is still probably 2 or 3 years away. I don't know, but that's interesting. I'll have to go back and look at that. Now my curiosity is piqued. I mean, they did already commit though. New Supra is going to be coming still at some point, and it could also just even be the GR GT3 thing or whatever that the race car. Maybe that's what they're talking about. I don't know. That's interesting. And B. Mitchell says, going to that Lincoln Club show today, I drove my buddy's new Maverick XLT all-wheel drive. It was okay and gave me vibes from my 84 to 92 Rangers, but kept thinking that a Lobo with more snort would be fun. Yeah, that'd be a good time. I'm sure someone has a tune for a Lobo at this point, just Maverick in general, because it's the same engine. So that's cool. Yeah, I'm glad you like the Maverick, and I hope they do more. We'll see. Fingers crossed. And Edge says you'll have to do some editing, maybe omit some things for the Uber vlogs. Yeah, maybe that could be a way to do it. We'll have to see. And Jake says, longtime viewer, keep up the good work. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And thanks for stopping by and commenting for the first time. I really appreciate that. Happy to always see new faces in here, at least as far as the live streams goes. He says, now let's turn onto this back road and see how my RX 350 goes. There you go. Hope you're enjoying the RX. They're obviously indestructible, and I'm sure it'll last you much longer, as long as you want to keep it, honestly, probably. But hope you're having a good time with it. And thanks so much for watching, Jake. I appreciate that. And Danny says, Matt, what are your thoughts on Ram bringing 2 new SRT models back? One of those 2 being the Ram TRX. I think that's great. I hadn't heard any specifics. I mean, it makes sense. TRX is coming back. I think the other one you're going to see is going to be a street truck version of that. So probably same exact mechanicals as T-Rex, just, pull out all the suspension stuff from T-Rex and put in, a sportier chassis that's based on regular, Ram. And I think that's going to probably be what you can expect. Could be something else, but I think, we're doing it cheap and we're doing it fast and quick to again cash in on the free for all of emission standards for the next 3 years here. That would be my bet, is rush those out, sell as many of them as you can, and then pack up shop once you have to have rules again. I'm guessing that's going to be the plan. Maybe they'll get more creative than that. I don't know. We'll have to see. And Cypress says, sorry, but most press cars are not interesting. Don't try to be the Motor Trend Mag channel, off the cuff, fun car reviews where you're shining best and most entertaining. Still love the F-Type review. Yeah, the F-Type R1 was definitely one of the highlights. And, actually, this is something I've really been looking at the numbers, because, I mean, again, because the channel is struggling, nothing is off the table. Absolutely nothing. I'm following the views. I'm following the money. Like, whatever works, I will do. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, I don't give a crap. If me driving Yugos once a week is what helps me to pay the bills, like, I'll do it. I don't care. But when I look at, because I did a lot of used reviews this year, especially this fall, I've really picked up ever since the summer. I've been doing a lot of, I've been mixing in the used stuff pretty well, and I'm very happy about that, because that's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Because one, I'm very, again, excited about just filming cars that meet people with where they are financially and have stuff that's affordable and not everything that's 50 grand. But also it was kind of, interesting to try out and see, how are these going to do views wise? Because every once in a while in the past few years, I've had, like one or two that I've done that have done wildly, super good views and stuff. But when I look back at the past few months here, I mean, a lot of the used stuff they're slow growers, they're evergreen, and they take a while to accumulate views, but they slowly but surely get views. Whereas a lot of the new stuff peaks, drops off, no one watches it ever again. The used stuff does seem to kind of be the dark horse that comes up from behind and eventually, are the views champs. But I've been monitoring some of the stuff I've posted in the past few months to see, okay, is this catching on? Is this actually evergreen, or is this just going to be a dud? And stuff like that had good initial response, like the Audi A4 that I did. That was a 2017 A4, phenomenal value. Again, it's like you get a really good car that's actually pretty reliable, pretty high tech still for 15 grand or whatever it was. Really, like, stuff like that where I really can wholeheartedly put my whole recommendation behind it. That's the stuff that I think is I am passionate about doing. And stuff like the Golf R, I was very excited to do that. The Mark 6 Golf R, I posted that review a couple of weeks ago. And the Golf R one did okay. That's a pretty rare car, so I think that was pretty good. And this Q70 that I posted this past week has actually done very well too, which is that's a weird one that I'm not chalking up to anything that I did actually. Because that video actually kind of seemed like it was kind of fizzle out, and then for some reason the YouTube algorithm just decided to shove it on the homepage, and it just shot up and got like 4,500 views in like 48 hours. And so now that one's sitting at almost 10,000 views, which is in my orbit here of my channel, at least that's a pretty decent success for the first week or so. And that one did very well, but it seemed like it wasn't going to. And I analyze this stuff like crazy to figure out why stuff gets featured on the homepage, and there's never been a good reason, because even stuff that has super long watch time, which is like I've always said in the past few months here, that's the way to help the channel the best. If you can watch something the whole way through, that sends the best signal to the algorithm that you love this video and they should recommend it to other people. But I look at some of this stuff, and some of the stuff with the worst watch time is the stuff that gets the best views. And yet the stuff that people do watch all the way through, YouTube doesn't push that, and it doesn't actually get a bunch of views. So it's like, I still don't know, I still haven't, no one really has figured out the algorithm. Everyone's trying to do their best guess of what's going to hit, and, we all just throw enough spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. But, but I've been looking at the used stuff, and it doesn't seem like the used stuff is doing as well as I thought it would. And when I look at a lot of the new stuff, It might be boring to you, and even, it might not be the most exciting to me. I might have more fun doing some crazy used thing, but like, you know, boring-ish stuff like Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid. I just did that, a couple of months ago, or like a month ago, and that's at like 14,000 views. And yet, I'm doing way less views than some of the more exciting, fun stuff. And I even look back at, sporty stuff that's I'm like, oh, this is going to do great. And even used sporty stuff, I'm like, this is going to do great. And it doesn't do great. And then I do a boring review of something and it gets a bunch of views. And, so I'm conflicted. Like, if the easy path forward was just only do sporty stuff, this is the way, great. I'll happily do that. But I look at channels like the Smoking Tire, for example, also not thriving. I mean, like, they're starting from a higher standpoint. Matt has got, he's obviously way more subscribers, a way bigger fan base. He's got his podcast that's very successful and all this other stuff. So he has other things. But, if you just look at his YouTube stats, like, his channel has also kind of declined a little bit and kind of flatlined a little bit like mine has. He does fantastic videos and, deserves to, be getting huge views, but he's not. And I look at the channels that are thriving the most right now, and it's like Car Confections. They're growing, faster than anybody really in this realm. And they do almost exclusively press cars and boring stuff. And they are, views wise and subscriber growth wise, they are like, one of the top channels right now. And, so it's hard. I know obviously everyone doesn't want to copy everyone else because everyone has their own things. But, I look at like Matt Farah and I say, okay, well, they're full performance cars and never doing anything boring. Doesn't work out super great for him anymore. Like, and then I look at, the boring stuff, and that's great for others, but it might not always be great for me or for somebody else. And it's all very hard. And I know that this channel has always, started initially as being this sporty, compact import stuff and, the muscle cars and stuff. And, I'm happy to go back to a lot of that stuff, but, there's a kind of a dead end there. It's not, that's the other thing that's nice about the press cars is there's always something new to cover and something that hasn't been covered 10 times before. Versus if I'm just, okay, let's just go back and do all the old V8 Mustangs. And, okay, I filmed so many of those before it gets old and tired. And I look at even like that dude in blue. David is, someone I go way back, a great guy. And he only does fun, cool stuff and crazy modified stuff. Obviously his channel, again, also way more subscribers, way more success, way more views than me. I give my left arm these days to have the amount of, views and subscribers he does. But, he's also kind of been struggling. There's not a whole lot of growth there. He's doing great, with his other stuff that he's doing these days. He's been doing these topical, news videos talking about, stuff in the car world, and he's doing things, his way, and not stuff that I would do personally, I think. But, he's, again, like if the way forward was to do it the way that dude in blue is doing, then, he'd be getting, huge views, and it's kind of a struggle. He still gets good views on some stuff, but there's other things where it is, it's hard. And so I think I envision it going one of two ways. I think there's, the idea that maybe, as we all age, because I think, that's the thing with a lot of us is, a lot of you have been watching me for 5, 10, 15 years, even some of you, we've all grown up together. And I think, we all in our 20s, we didn't have families or whatever, we were all excited about muscle cars and all excited about impractical vehicles that we could just have fun in and, look cool in and whatever the case is, and now I think a lot of you actually are like, hey, look, I need something practical. I need to haul a family around, and I am happy to see a familiar face. I'm happy to see Matt's videos here, and he can give me my, the rundown here on the new RAV4, because that's what I need in life right now. And I think that, when I look at my viewer demographics, I do have very few people that are younger now. It's mostly, again, everyone that kind of follows me in age is always the largest demographic, people in my age, which means people in my stage of life, where a lot of people do have families, and a lot of people, are just, they're burned out on having, exhausts that make them deaf and all these other things. And it might be fun nostalgia for a little while to go back and do that, and that's why I do dabble in that. But I think that a lot of people, still just would like to hear my thoughts on the boring stuff, because maybe they still have a fun car for the weekends, but maybe they'd also like my thoughts on the minivan that they need as well. And that's why I try and always have something for everyone. And views wise, that stuff does great. The RAV4 videos I posted, especially the XSE one, best video I've posted in probably 6 months, views wise. And again, that Corolla Cross, 14,000 views. Some of these other things, pretty good views. So like, I can't just turn away that stuff when it gets good views still. If all of them bombed, if every single boring car bombed, okay, the message is clear here. This isn't the way for me. Now, that's not to say that I can't pivot to all performance stuff in the future. And I think one of the things that I'm contemplating as becoming more and more likely is, we're seeing ChatGPT getting more and more popular, and we're seeing, I just talked to my neighbor, not too long ago, who like they decided partially on their next car by, asking ChatGPT, like, I want this, this, and this. What should I get? And then they spit out an answer of Toyota Grand Highlander. And then, they watched a couple of videos to, get some thoughts and make sure they were on the right path. So they still had YouTube as a component of that. But I think, my passion always been helping people find cars they'll love. But if people aren't coming to YouTube for that anymore, and they're just, only going to ChatGPT or whatever and having AI tell them what car they should get next. And, maybe a few people go to YouTube to confirm that, or they watch a video or something after they bought it to, give them the pat on the back that they made the right choice. If that's a fraction of the traffic it used to be. And we also see like YouTube is experimenting with allowing you to generate a video in real time, and allowing you to type in a prompt and say, okay, I want to watch a video review of a Toyota Grand Highlander on the highway. What is the consensus here or whatever? Then it can just regurgitate all those highlights from all of the reviewers that have had a review out on this and talk about that part. It can, crawl through all this stuff, pull all the valuable pieces for that person from their prompts, and give them exactly what they want without, listening to a 15-minute preamble from me or whoever else. And, so if that is the future of car buying, is ChatGPT and AI giving you answers in a conversation instead of sitting back and watching a video, then I can't help people with a video anymore. And so, I do these one-on-one things like I've been doing on my website, these one-on-one physical video calls with people to help them find a car they'll love. Some people have found, some real value in that and love that. But if there's no car shoppers on YouTube really anymore, then it will just become entertainment again. And it will be, and I think when we look at the future, I think entertainment in the car world will probably be the stuff that's best suited to thrive. And so I'm fully prepared to make a pivot to just saying, okay, I'm not giving people advice anymore because they don't look to me for advice or anyone else on YouTube. So now I'm just here to have fun and, have my reactions and, have a laugh with everyone and just show off cool stuff. And that's a very likely possibility. So you may get your wish there, and it may actually end up becoming that eventually, Cypress. I find that more and more likely every day. But for now, there still is a lot of interest in regular stuff. So sorry for the long answer, but that's the way, to me, it seems is going to be the best for now. This is why I've also done the Junkyard channel, to just say, hey, look, let's just show cool crap in the junkyard and not even bother with reviewing anything, and just, it just have the fun and the adventure of that and the treasure hunting of that. And kind of getting away from it being, again, this box that I've been in for over a decade of like, okay, I must like cover everything on a car, and it's just walking around and having fun and doing treasure hunting. I think that has even more widespread appeal, even beyond people who even care about cars. I think you could watch the Junkyard video and just be like, oh, I wonder what crazy thing he's going to find today that some goofball modified or whatever, So I think that's why I'm fully prepared for that to be the primary channel in the future, and kind of have this channel be a fallback kind of, skeleton crew kind of thing, where I still have press cars maybe, and I still film that if it's something I'm interested in, or if someone offers me something cool, I do a review a week or once every 2 weeks or something. But I really envision that junkyard channel potentially taking over, especially if we get to times where no one has money for cars because of economic conditions and stuff. Then there's less car shoppers for that too. So then it's like, all right, let's just forget about car shopping for the foreseeable future, and just go do other fun stuff with cars. So so we'll see. But like I said, everything's on the table for me. And Chad, thank you so much for a super chat. He says your used reviews and salvage are my favorite. So I'm glad you enjoy those, and thank you again for that feedback. And and I do appreciate all of you, the subscribers. I mean, YouTube does show me, subscribers very much do respond better to the used reviews than the new stuff. That is undeniable. That's a fact. The problem is that subscribers make up 20% of my views on YouTube. 20%. And you could partially argue that that is because I don't do more stuff that subscribers would like, the used stuff. But again, the more that I dabble in the used stuff, actually, it's kind of funny. This past quarter, I've done more used stuff in the past quarter than I think I've done in probably 5 years. And those used vehicles, have actually led to a decrease in overall subscriber watch time. So previously I was sitting between 70 and 75% non-subscribers, and 30 to 25-ish% subscribers. And now it's dropped to 20% are subscribers watching. And it's just, it's harder and harder to get people to, that are subscribed to watch stuff, even if I do go for the used stuff. So again, if I'm appealing to those non-subscribers, what do those non-subscribers want? What are those people that are seeing me for the first time? What do they want? Which is actually still a majority of people have never watched one of my videos ever before. They're seeing this for the first time. How is this going to be, valuable to them? And how am I going to introduce myself to these brand new people? And that's kind of always, been the focus more recently. And that's kind of the thing. But I do very much appreciate those of you who show up for the cool used stuff and the subscribers. It's just that unfortunately just doesn't carry the channel as much as I'd like. So we'll see what happens. But it's kind of funny with the junkyard channel. Even that channel has like 1,100 subscribers, and the junkyard walks already are getting more views or equal views to a car review with 1,000 subscribers, which just goes to show how the subscriber count means nothing. I know, again, there's a few hundred of you maybe who watch things, religiously and support me all the time, but that 457,000 subscriber number you see there is completely irrelevant, because I get a same view count on 1,000 subscribers on the other channel. So the whole system is just so broken that YouTube has. But anyway, see, we're over time here, so I will wrap it up with the super chats and the last few questions here. So Jordan, thank you so much for a very generous super chat. I really appreciate it. He says, in 2024, in a 2024 live, I asked, would AI ever pick/design the perfect car for consumers? And you created a short. Please don't ever delete it, and please go back and push that short. It's happening. Yeah, there is some AI involvement for sure, and that's certainly going to just grow. And I never plan on deleting content. There's some stuff, if it's really off-brand or underperforming, where there's an argument, some people have made of deleting some of that, and I may look into doing that here at some point. But I think most of the stuff is very on brand and hasn't really changed, much in the past 10 or 15 years. So I'm pretty sure I'll never really delete anything off this channel. And Chad, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, can you see member stats or just subscribers? Unfortunately, I can only see subscribers. I can't see, they don't break it down to just members and what members watch. So yeah, there's no way to differentiate there, unfortunately. And OKS Basis, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships here right at the end. I really appreciate that. Happy to see a bunch of new names they're able to get the memberships. That's awesome. I hope they appreciate those memberships. And thank you so much for the generosity, OKS Basis. I really appreciate it. All right, last couple of comments here, and we'll head on out. let me see. Actually, sorry, we were a little bit further behind than I thought. Thanks to my tangents here. Stangman says, which trim level of the Elantra has the smoothest ride? Probably. I mean, I haven't driven it, but I would have to assume it would be the blue hybrid version, because that one's going to have the smallest wheels and like kind of the most soft kind of suspension and ordinary setup. So that's probably going to be the best one. There might be a case to be made for the Elantra N in its softest mode, since it has adaptive dampers you don't get in the regular Elantras. But I would have to assume it's going to be regular hybrid Elantra with the smallest wheels possible, would be my guess. And let me see here. Chad says, I saw a review of the last gen Corvette manual and it got amazing interstate mileage because the engine was basically snoring. Yeah, and they had the 7-speed in those, so that was great for sure. Let me see. Taste Bud says a company would bank if they could retrofit gas cars with electric assist motors that are lightweight and add 1 to 200 horsepower and massive efficiency benefits. Could bolt onto the front axle of rear-wheel drive cars for all-wheel drive. Yeah, I mean, there's companies trying to do that, and the thing that I've seen actually, and I think actually Honda Pro Jason did a collaboration a few years back, actually on his last generation Type R. So this is actually probably in the late 2010s, where they turned it into all-wheel drive within wheel motors. And that's very much, as we get down to miniaturizing electric motors and making them stronger and stronger, that's, I think, going to be something that will be viable in the future. Now, I'm not sure how involved it'll be, because you still need to have a battery and have, all that routing and find a place for that. But especially once I think the golden combo is going to be, those motors getting more and more efficient and miniaturized, and then you have that combined with, the battery tech evolving with solid state and things like that. So if you can have a tiny little solid state with a bunch of battery capacity, and you have, again, these really efficient electric motors, I think that will absolutely be something that can be possible in the future, to have in-wheel motors, pop them on, have your all-wheel drive, and have your nice big power boost there, and the efficiency. I think that's going to very much, be possible. The only thing that makes it tricky is ECU. So, everything else is figured out, but then, if the gas engine is seeing all this extra assistance, it could be very much confused as far as what it needs to do. And, it won't be smart enough to know to turn off the engine. And, if it doesn't have a built-in stop start, then there's never going to be, that efficiency gain. But I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's something that companies are looking into and would love to offer, if not OEMs, at least aftermarket wise, so we'll just have to see if that becomes a reality. But I mean, there's people working on it, I know, because again, I've seen it at SEMA. So hopefully that does become a reality someday. I agree, that'd be a great idea. B. Mitchell says, I did my first oil change on the Blue Pony at 460 miles, currently at 85K with no issues with the Coyote. That's great, and hope it treats you well for a long, long time here. And Wyatt says, well, it's not the moon, but Japan has very little resources, no minerals, oil, gas. Gotcha. And Chad says, do you think that switching to basically soy sauce for oil compounds the problems for failure in production machining? I mean, thinner oil definitely gives you less forgiveness, but I mean, there's a concern there that there could be some extra wear and tear. But again, like, these engineers do all this R&D work, all these simulations of hundreds of thousands of miles with that oil, in the sim, and doing it, and they simulate different oils. Can we do it with this oil? Can we do it with that oil? That's all, stuff that they're doing whenever they're engineering these motors. So I would have to think that they have evaluated, okay, does this meet our targets? Does this do what we need it to do? Again, to uphold our very important reputation. Yes, efficiency is important, but you don't gain so much efficiency going to a thinner oil that it makes a wild difference. And so, I don't think there's a huge difference in gain to be made there. But I don't know. I'm not an engineer, so I can't say for sure. But again, I always like, whenever it comes to those types of things where I don't know and I'm not smart enough to figure it out on my own, I always default to the experts. And I say, okay, this person has gone to school for this. This person has hung their entire career on this. I'm inclined to trust them, and that they know what they're talking about. And that's why there's experts in whatever field you're talking about. Like, those experts are there to be the experts. They're the ones that dedicate their lives to that. And I just default to them. And so if they are going to a thinner oil, I have to assume that there's a good reason for it, and that it has been vetted, and that they are not going to flush their reputation down the toilet over something. So, but we'll see. I mean, again, they're already, struggling here with the Tundras. So hopefully that gets fixed here soon. And let me see. Jordan says money is tight right now within this administration. Used car junkyard reviews definitely appeal to people now, especially people into resto mods. It's more feasible than a 45 grand bloated SUV or Tesla. Definitely. I totally agree. And that's, again, the appeal of the junkyards. And I mean, the other side effect of the junkyard stuff too, I've had actually multiple people now that have either commented or sent me an email or a message and said, hey, I'm near this junkyard. I really need this part. Did you happen to see, does it have a working this, that, or the other? Which I don't really look at stuff super close, so I'm not very helpful with that. But at least letting people know, like, hey, this car's in the yard. You can go check it out if you need a part, for your thing or whatever, without having to go to the yard and waste your own time figuring out if this is here. You can go and know that it's going to be there. And I think we saw how like whenever we had the past recession, like we saw Advanced Auto Parts, like their stock shot up, and people were running to the stores because they were fixing their old cars because they couldn't afford new ones. And I think you'll most likely see a lot of that. I think that the auto parts stores stand to gain a lot here, and I think junkyards will see a real resurgence of not only people just going there to fix their cars, but people going there to just flip parts, because that's what a lot of these people that go there do. Is they're there to say, okay, well, I know how to pull out headlights. I'm going to pull out every headlight that I can get my hands on and sell them on eBay. And this kind of scavenging lifestyle of doing things that way, I think, is going to be more and more popular, again, as more and more people are turning to side gigs, and air traffic controllers are looking for extra money because they're not getting paid. And so, let's go flip some parts in the yard, and things like that. I think that's going to be more and more common. So I think junkyards are going to have a bright future, and I hope to ride that wave a little bit as well. And you see, chat says, we love your chats and vids, Matt. I know things are tough, but whatever you do, you have some very loyal fans. They may look better on paper, but loyalty isn't something you can throw money at. I totally agree. And I very much am so thankful for all of you who've watched all these years. It always blows me away. And I never take it for granted. That's why I always make sure, even if I'm 2 hours and 20 minutes into these lives, that I answer every question I can, and that I do these twice a week. What other car YouTuber does twice a week live streams just talking with you and not just sitting there and ranting on their own? I know I do some rants, but I think I'm the only one that actually talks to my fans twice a week and answers questions and does this Q&A thing. I love doing it, but I hope that speaks volumes for where my heart is with this stuff. And not to say that others that don't do that, don't love their fans or anything, but I put my time where my mouth is, and I devote 3 hours a week to just chatting with you guys, or more in this case, so hopefully that counts for something too. But I absolutely thank you all so much for your support. And Ahmed says, it's your channel. You don't owe it to us to only review fun performance cars. It's not a bad thing that you're making videos for everyone. And Cypress says, not saying to stick to one, but do both fun and everyday commuter press cars. Yeah, and that's kind of what I have been doing, and I hope to keep doing that. To tick all the boxes, like you say, and that's absolutely my plan going forward. Because I'm also burned out on the expensive stuff and the stuff that's unrelatable, and this is why I've turned down stuff. I turned down Escalade IQ, which I would love to live with an Escalade IQ for a week. Who doesn't want to roll around in a $130,000 ultra luxurious SUV for a week? It's great. but it's unrelatable, and I'm not doing reviews for the 1%ers or the 1% of the 1%. Like I have no love for that group right now, especially with the way things are going. So like, it's not my interest. But like I was on this Cadillac program for the Optic V, a week and a half ago or whatever, and like the one Cadillac PR person said, like, oh, like, we were riding in an Escalade IQ. I'm like, oh yeah, these are so nice. And she's like, yeah, have you had one for a week yet? Have we sent you one? And I'm like, no. I'm like, I turned it down. Like I had to tell the Cadillac rep in person, like, this isn't what my viewers want to see. Like this is just, it's unrelatable. And she's like, no, I get it. She's like, and she actually loves the Optic. That's one of her favorite ones in the lineup. And again, because of that, more affordability and everything. But it's hard to say, to Cadillac's face, like, I don't want to review your car because, it's unrelatable. Like that was one of those. I mean, it's an amazing car. I've ridden in Escalade IQs now a bunch because they drove us back and forth to the airport in them and drove us back and forth to dinner in them and everything else. Super nice. But just, I'm not here for, reviewing $130,000 stuff. I'll do expensive stuff sometimes if it's really fun or special. But like I did the Vantage this year, which was 250,000 or whatever. So I'm a hypocrite. I'll make exceptions where it's worth it for me. But like, stuff that's, especially if it's electric and especially if it's just, a rolling, blob on that's very nice, but just not something that's super exciting. I'm just not into it. But so that's me, committing to that, of trying to do stuff that's, enjoyable for everyone, but let me see here. Chad says, weird idea, but I'd definitely go to a junkyard with a Christmas light walkthrough. That'd be fun to do. Like, yeah, if they did a Christmas light kind of thing. I don't know if anyone has ever done that, but yeah, the pull apart, that would be a fun thing for them to do, like string some lights up on each of the rows. Maybe I'll pass that along to the head of operations for pull apart that I know. Maybe I can suggest that to her, and maybe that could be a thing. That's it's a fun idea, and also raise awareness of like, hey, there's a junkyard in your community. Come check it out. That's actually a very good idea. If they haven't done that already, you might be onto something there, Chad. I'll be sure to give you credit. Let me see. Ahmed says, personally, I really like your structured review of cars. The average consumer appreciates that. Most review channels do that. Have fun, but you're Matt Moran, not a blogger like Shmi or something. Yeah, and I think that's I'm trying to stay in my lane and stick to that stuff. But a lot of people, they remember me from the vlogger days when it was just me and my BRZ talking every week about what it's like to have a BRZ. So it's hard to please everybody. So that's why, again, I try and follow the numbers and follow what I think the data is telling me and what those of you are telling me. But it's trying to accumulate all that and aggregate it into a consensus can be a challenge, because YouTube even gives me conflicting signals. So it's hard to say what's the right path, but keep on trying and see what happens. But let me see. See, Ahmed is doing the typical SuperX fan opening there, and Tony says I need to bring that back. I'm guessing the SuperX fan thing. It was so limiting, that once I dropped these Subaru things, so many car companies were willing to work with me and do, press cars and all that. They couldn't send cars to someone who has the implied bias of being a Subaru fan, and I don't blame them. So never going to come back with a SuperX fan thing, unfortunately. But it's fun to watch those old reviews, and that's the great thing about those, that archive that will always remain, and a fun look back at simpler times. And that's fun. But Chad, thank you so much for SuperX fan for life. I appreciate that. And Cypress, says to keep trucking as well. Thank you so much, everyone. And Tony says, dude was the reason I bought an Evo instead. Well, I'm happy to help. It always makes me feel good to know that I've helped some of you guys find a car you loved. And that's why I do this still. And Chad says, I hope Matt feels the love. I absolutely do. Yeah, thank you so much. I absolutely do here. And that's something that's never lacked. I've always felt the love, and I feel very fortunate for all the support and all the love. And that's why I'm so, so adamant to try and fix this channel and get this, thing working again, and yeah, because I don't want to stop. I don't want to go and get a regular job and not be able to interact with you guys as much and not do this stuff as much, because I love it. I don't want to let it go, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, the chat says JD Clarkson and Matt the trio. Yeah, I appreciate that. All right, well, I'm gonna head on out here, and thank you all so much for chatting here and hanging out for 2.5 hours pretty much. Hope you all have a great week here. Stay tuned for Centra 2026 Centra here tomorrow morning, and yeah, stay tuned for more good stuff here. Going to be doing, again, hopefully another junkyard walk here. I'll be posting up early this week, fingers crossed, and some more good stuff. Yeah, so stay tuned for all that. But anyway, thank you all very much, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.